We will go ahead and call this meeting to order, the Provo Municipal Council work session meeting. Today is Tuesday, March 29th at 12:30 p.m. This is Travis Hoban, Council Chair. Meetings of the Municipal Council are being held in hybrid fashion. That is, members of the public can continue to view council meetings on YouTube and Facebook, or they may attend in person in the council chamber at the Provo City Center. I remind participants to mute your microphones when not speaking to minimize the potential for background noises and conversations to be picked up, recorded, and broadcast for all to hear. Today we have with us council members Whipple, Hanley, McKay, Shipley, myself, Travis Hoban, and doesn't appear we have any council members joining us online yet, but we'll let you know when they join. We also are joined by our esteemed CAO, Wayne Parker, and our Deputy Mayor, Paxman. All right, and thank you to council staff for getting this meeting all set up. As always, the stars of the show. This is funny because we literally have no one in the audience to call on for prayer. Our prayer today, opening prayer will be by invitation. Today's prayer will be provided by Isaac Paxman.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here this day, and we ask thy help and spirit to be with us. We pray that counselors will be able to think clearly and do those things that they see will be best for our community. We appreciate this community and all those who are serving in so many ways in it, and ask blessings on them. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Our first item of business is proposed we approve the following minutes: March 10th, 2022 joint meeting with the Orem City Council and February 1st, 2022 council meeting minutes. Are there any objections or requested changes to those meeting minutes? Okay. Seeing no objection, I declare the minutes approved by unanimous consent. Although this is a public meeting, only the presenters and those invited by the council may speak or ask questions unless otherwise invited by the chair. Please wait to speak until called on by the council chair. Our first item of business, or our first real item of business here, is a discussion regarding redistricting adjustments to the city council district maps. We have 80 minutes for this. So Karen Tapahe, Community Relations Coordinator for the City Council, will be presenting this to us. So take it away, Karen. Thank you.
Is this, yeah, okay, I can hear it. And I appreciate your patience today. I have a residual cough. I will be using a lot of cough drops to get through this. So we listed the 11 maps selected at the last work meeting on Open City Hall and kept that open from March 17th until the morning of March 28th. We had 84 people take the survey. Most of those were registered users. And in looking at the registered users only, because they indicate their address and location in the city, we were able to see that we did have more participation from the Joaquin and Provo South neighborhoods. We had a good number of responses from districts 1, 3, and 5, and then a handful from the others. In looking over everything, you've seen the memo showing what people rated as most important on the different criteria used, and in evaluating the 11 maps. And of the maps that people put forward that we didn't have on our list, there really wasn't a large gathering around any particular map. In fact, one map that had 2 votes for it was in fact one that's included in this. It's just that we had renamed them so that it would be less confusing, but apparently not entirely less confusing. So just from what I've seen in going through this redistricting process for the school board and now the council, it didn't look like there was any push in a particular direction, not really a strong push, definitely things to consider that you're already considering. Helping the West Side have a voice, preserving certain areas of the city, and the tough thing is one of the popular items was grouping communities of interest, but you'd have to identify what communities you're trying to keep together versus having them split apart. So without identifying a particular community of interest, I know there were some students who participated, some college students who felt that dividing their population wasn't fair in some sense, but I don't think, I'm not sure that they had all the information on how those precincts were created, how they're currently represented, that college student population has traditionally been divided up among the districts in that area. So I'm hoping that you got some great insights from this, but we're going to pull up the 11 different maps, starting with the status quo, because might as well start where we already are. This
Hey,
map,
Karen, I just want to say, Counselor Ellsworth has joined us, so.
oh, good. So the first map, the status quo, this is as close as we can get to our current outline of districts, but adjusted as needed for population. So that would be map 67. And I don't know if you want to start with an up-down.
I think what we want to do is, we've got kind of the 5 themes. And so I think what we want to do is so this is one theme, right?
Yeah,
the status
the
quo would
rest
be a
are
theme.
grouped more by theme. This one
And
is just as is.
I think we want to see how much support there is for each type of theme or map, I guess, as we go through them. So I guess I would just say, let's have a little bit of a discussion on this particular map. Let's start there and just see how this goes with this process, and maybe it'll evolve as we go like it did last time. But I think let's just start with the discussion on this. Does anybody have any thoughts on this theme or keeping the status quo?
Yeah, so this isn't a surprise to anybody. The status quo, I think, has created, at least over the last decade, a sense on the West Side that that they have different needs and different unique things that are happening on the West Side, and that they would like additional representation or unique representation to west of I-15. So no surprise to anybody here, but that's the reason why the status quo doesn't fit for me.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Shipley.
Is this actually status quo?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's as close.
It's close, but it's not.
Right. I mean, it's
It's with the new-
adjusted for the population.
Okay. Because my northern boundary is not as far north as
Right.
this one is.
Right. Because it's not really fair to judge status quo if it wouldn't go through the system based on population.
Yeah, this was as close to status quo as they could get.
Right.
Yeah, I named it.
I think there were
Close to-
4 or 5 districts that had to change in order, on the fringes, so to speak, but yeah.
And
So-
yours was especially difficult to adjust because as a small number of precincts to work
Yeah.
with.
Okay. I just was confused about why it was called status quo if it
Yeah.
wasn't exactly the same, but
So I think what I'd like to see is how much support we have. Oh, go ahead, Councilor McKay.
I too agree that I want everything west of I-15 in one group. So this one wouldn't work for me either.
Okay. So I think what we'll do, and this doesn't need to be recorded. This isn't like an official vote just for staff. I know we stressed them out a little bit last time, but I'd like to just see how much support there would be with kind of keeping this for now. Kind of first round of cuts here. If we were a football team, do they make the first round of cut or not? Go ahead, Counselor.
Well, that was actually going to be, I know you had suggested we go by type, but I part of my hesitation is that, like this map, for example, is not my top three, but it's better than some others. And so I'm willing to indicate which bottom 4 maps or 5 maps. I don't know how many we could start eliminating first, and then sort of look at the ones we have remaining. That's something I would prefer, only because then I would know.
Well, the problem is everybody's going to have a different bottom 4, so we're going to.
Well, maybe not. Maybe not. That's what I'm wondering, if we could at least explore if there are some maps that we all agree should go. But maybe I'm wrong.
Well, with this one, I thought we kind of were, because in my conversations, I didn't feel like this had a ton of support.
Okay.
Or had significant support, but
well, maybe
I could be wrong. I mean,
if I'm in the minority, that's also fine. That was my thinking was.
Counselor Ellsworth, go ahead.
I just wanted to agree with Mr. Hanley. He still might be in the minority, but I agree with him. And I think the question to ask at this phase, if we're not going by themes, is how many people want to eliminate this map?
Okay.
Right?
So
They don't
we'll
want to
ask
think
how
about
many
it again.
people. And you're saying, Counselor Ellsworth, that if there's 4 that want to eliminate it, then it's cut. Is that what you're saying?
I think that makes sense, but I'm open to alternatives.
Okay. We are expecting Bill to join, Counselor Fillmore to join in the next couple minutes. So it appears like we want to approach this in how many want to kick this one out, right? That you feel like that's an easier approach. Yeah, I don't disagree. So who would give this one a thumbs down? Let's start there. And we don't know where Bill stands. Okay.
Is this a no for Miss?
Is she, Counselor Ellsworth?
The question is, do I want to eliminate this one?
Yes. Do you want to eliminate this one?
I'm okay to keep it on the table.
Okay. So at this point, this one will stay on the table then.
Okay, let's go to the next one. This one was the only one that I had from the category affectionately known as Split the North.
Okay.
This is map 75.
I know Counselor Fillmore has an opinion on this one. So I guess let's maybe come back to this one, because I think we're going to want Counselor Fillmore's opinion on it, because since it does impact his area significantly.
Okay.
It's his district.
The next one starts I think it's the only one that's a West Side plus Grandview piece, and that's map 34.
Go ahead, Counselor Hanley.
I'll just say this is my favorite.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just wanted to throw that out.
That's
there.
your favorite. Oh. Do you want to elaborate?
Well, I think I've long felt that we don't have a massively broken problem, but we have some things that we want to improve. And I feel like this one improves some of those problems without being too drastic. So I like that it has a west side west of the highway. I like that my district has a little more of the residential voting areas in it. And everything else it has a coherent downtown, strong southeast, strong north. So it seems like it has a lot of the qualities of our current system with some improvements.
Thank you, Counselor Hanley. Other comments on this particular map?
Oh, and for the record, Mr. Fillmore has joined us.
Thank you. Yep.
Yeah.
So
Counselor Whipple.
on this one, I like that it's got a strong southeast section. It looks like it takes care of the BYU issue pretty well. It's got a good downtown core. If I get, well, at the risk of sounding greedy, I would really like to have that southeast part of Mazer back with the downtown, but I can understand that that may not make the numbers work. The face portion, adding Grandview into the west side, I know is not ideal based on the history of the communities there. The mitigating factor I see with that is that Grandview looks to be pretty stable and not growing, and the west side's growing dramatically. And so I would imagine that you would have a shift in voters and power to the west side, even with that Grandview section attached to it. I'd like that this keeps most of the historic pioneer neighborhoods together, because if we don't have Grandview with the west side, then we end up with South Franklin or something. And I really don't know which is the best way to make those numbers work. But from my district perspective, this looks pretty good, and I like the cohesive southeast.
Thank you, Counselor Whipple. Other thoughts or opinions on this one?
Mr. Chairman, excuse my delay in arriving. Tell me what our process is.
So what we're doing is at this point, we'll see how this goes. We're trying to identify maps that have very little support and eliminate those and help us to narrow down. So what we're going to do is, once we're done with discussion on this particular map, we're going to ask for those who want to get rid of this map to let us know. And if we've got 4 people who want to get rid of it, then it doesn't have enough support to make the first cut.
Okay, that makes good sense. So I should weigh in if I don't like it.
Yeah, if you really don't like it, you should weigh in.
I do not like it.
Thank you.
I don't like the thumb that comes down to the center of the city from the northeast. And I think it makes more sense to create a district that separates Grandview from the west side.
Thank you. Other opinions?
Yeah, I mean,
Counselor Shipley.
consistent with what I said before. So this is the same kind of approach in my mind. It's a little better, right? Because it's moving in a direction that helps. But yeah, I think the folks who would say, the downtown has a lot in common with River Grove, I'd be like, I don't know about that. I really prefer the maps where Grandview has River Grove, because I feel like those make more sense to me.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Counselor Ellsworth.
Yeah, I wanted to echo Mr. Hanley's comments. I also like this map, and Councilor Whipple's comments. I think that this solves a lot of the heartburn that some of us are concerned about. I am sympathetic to Mr. Shipley's concerns about Grandview being in the west side. That being said, I think this kind of map gives the west side 3 times the population of Grandview and 2 times the voters. It takes the Lakewood neighborhood, that southernmost area, and puts it into the west side. And there's those are wonderful, stable neighborhoods with involved folks and people who run for office. So I feel like this is a decent compromise.
Thank you, Counselor Ellsworth. So I feel like I should probably comment on this one, since it does impact my current district significantly. So the way I view this is it's similar to the status quo in that it doesn't disrupt a whole lot else, other than you kind of make the west side whole, and then you trim off some of the eastern portion of my district and give that to the downtown area, so to speak. I guess I'll just say I'm not necessarily advocating for this map, but I have tried to be flexible through this process, and I would say that I can live with this map. And if this were chosen, I would be okay with that. So I guess I'll say I'm not going to advocate for any specific map, I don't think, but I guess I'll just let you know that this one would be okay from my perspective, I think what it does is it keeps my district relatively consistent. There would be some changes, but I understand that everyone is going to have to change their districts a little bit. So with that, trying to be flexible there, I could live with this. So I don't know if there really is a perfect map for my district. Of all of these, pretty much my district gets blown up in all of these maps. And I think that's okay because ultimately we're not splitting up River Grove or not chopping up North Park more, and Grandview isn't getting cut in half or quartered. So I think what I would call like critical, dissecting of my district it's spared that. And in fact, it's made better because there is kind of a whole west side then. So I guess that's why I say I'm okay with this type of concept. So are there any more comments? Let's go ahead and see how many people want to vote this one down. Bill, I think you had a vote down on this one, right? Councilor Fillmore?
Strong no for me. I mean, I know there's a reluctance to change maps at this point, but it would make a lot more sense to me if you carved off the top rectangle of District 2, put that back in my district, and extended District 2 to the west for those green areas. That would make a lot more sense. Otherwise, it looks strangely gerrymandered.
Okay. All right. So we've got one vote no. Yeah, go ahead, Councilor Hannah.
Sorry, I'm eating and I should be more careful about this. I'd like to hear more from Mr. Fillmore about the logic there, because this actually solves a lot of problems for my district that I've been wanting to solve. I think you came in after I said this is my favorite map. And it is because the redrawing of the precincts kind of makes that northern boundary necessary. It gives my district more voting areas of the district. That western side of my district, I don't have any more natural connection to than you would, because it's separated by the entire BYU campus. So it's not that I have no interest in representing that group, or anyone in my district would. But I just don't see how it's any different for you than it is for me.
Well, I think that if you look at the left side of District 2 on this, that has a lot more in common with the green area to the west than that area has to the northeast.
And I'm suggesting I don't think that's true, but
so we
anyway.
Agree to disagree.
Yeah.
Okay, any additional downvotes on this one? All right, Councilor Shipley and Councilor McKay are a downvote. So that's 3 downvotes. Any additional? Okay. Councilor Ellsworth?
I'm not voting down.
Sorry, your hand was raised. Did you have a comment or just left up?
No, I guess it was just left up.
Okay. So this one remains. Well, we'll see if we eliminate any of these. This should be fun.
Did you want to return to map?
Let's return to
75?
that one that we passed on because of Bill.
Here we go.
So Bill,
I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry.
Councilor Fillmore, we passed on this one and then have come back to it because we wanted to get your
That is the
thoughts on
most
this one.
horrific of all the maps from my perspective.
All right, don't hold back though. Tell us how you really feel.
No, it makes no sense to just cut my district in half, running north and south. I have no interest in that whatsoever.
Any other comments on this one?
I have a question for Mr. Fillmore.
Councilor Ellsworth, go ahead.
Bill, can you tell us what does that mean for your district or the people who live there? Does it mean less representation for them? Do they feel disconnected from the city? why, can you kind of give me some more rationale behind that to take us on that thought process?
I see no logic to it other than numbers.
Sorry.
Okay.
So it's illogical?
Anything to accommodate Elizabeth. So, no, what I'm saying is that there's, if we talk about communities of interest, there is a fairly solid one in the Northeast. We're just splitting that down the middle merely to accommodate numbers. There's no community logic to it. That's my reason.
Can I ask you, trying to get a feel for this, because you're the expert, do you feel like those areas, the red area has things in common with the red area? Like, do you feel someone who lives in the red area could represent people in the red area? In my perspective, and I don't live up there, I feel like Grandview does have a fair amount in common with some of those northern red areas. They're built out, they're fairly stable. There's a kind of a certain threshold of socioeconomics. I feel like there is a lot in common, and so I'm just trying to learn from you what the issues are.
Okay, well, I've tried to explain that to you. It looks like this is just getting creative in order to accommodate the numbers for other districts. I just don't see any logic to it. Plus, these are, on a personal level, these are people I've represented for 2 years. I know them well. They know me well. Just like to continue it. I really believe philosophically when we approach redistricting that we ought to try to make minimal changes. We ought to adjust for population, and we ought not to make drastic changes just to accommodate somebody's numerical theories. So I feel most strongly about this map than any other.
And was Bill here when we talked about the status quo map? And I'd just be interested in his insights on that, since he said that he doesn't want to make major changes and that he's interested in tweaking it per.
We can come back to that one in a minute.
Okay, thanks.
Now, Councilor McKay?
This is the one I feel strongest against. In a sense, it looks gerrymandered to me. So this is one that I'm not a fan of.
Got 4 votes against it, so it's dead.
Okay. Look, George says we got 4 votes against it. I don't know how he counted that up, but let's go ahead and see.
3-3 before Bill arrived.
Mm.
And Bill's.
Okay, so just for clarity's sake, those against this,
On 75.
those against 75. Bill, you're against this one, right?
I could not be more clear.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. Who's the 4th? I think
We had a split vote earlier. Right?
no, we had a split vote on the status quo.
Oh, okay.
Or the one with Grandview.
Okay.
I'll make a comment on this one. It's not my favorite map, but maybe for a little bit different reason than Mr. Fillmore expressed, and that is that I actually worry with this map that theoretically you have, 2 district representatives at the very top of the city. You have 2, folks that are citywide, and you potentially have a mayor, and then you have just a kind of a super majority that's represented just in the very top of the city. So that's a challenge for me with this map. I think this map could work. That's why I'm not voting it down in this early round, but that's a big concern of this map for me.
That is the reason I voted down on it, but
Don't y'all think that could change every 2 years? I mean,
it can, but
projecting out of some sense of assurance.
no, it's not assurance. It's just that if there's a likelihood for something like that, that seems like kind of a risk maybe not worth taking. But anyways, that's just why I voted down on it. So this one survives this round. Okay. Can we please go back to the status quo and we can get Bill's vote on that and see how he feels? So Bill, this map here on the screen is what we called status quo, and not because it's exactly the same as how we currently have it, but it is as close to the same as we currently have the map as we could get while still meeting the requirements of balancing the population. This was a split vote 3-3, and we wanted to know your opinion, whether you would vote up or down on this, or if you have a comment or opinion on it.
What number is this?
67.
Map 67.
He doesn't have it in his thing. Bill, we don't have it in our thing because it came out after the fact.
Oh,
Do we have a printed version of, I guess you can look on them.
I don't feel strongly against this. I could live with this. Not my first choice, but
All right, that's not a thumbs down.
who voted against it and why?
So Bill, this is one that I strongly oppose based on the west side. So I think this keeps the challenge that the west side has dealt with the last decade, which is the west side is changing perhaps more dramatically than anywhere else in the city. And yet, it's represented usually by someone east of I-15. It's also a population that's most vocal about districting, probably, that I dealt with as I talked to people all over the city when I ran for office. And so I guess I'm trying to think in terms of like my own living situation the last 15 years over there, but also the people that I talk to throughout the city.
Who else voted against it?
Go ahead, Councilor McKay. Yeah, hold on one sec.
I did also for the exact same reasons as Dave. I do want to see everything west of I-15 together. And this doesn't have that a couple chunks in it. But while I was campaigning, it was something, I didn't hear any other district talk about districting except the west side.
Okay, and then I think it was Councilor Whipple who was opposed for similar reasons.
So mostly it's this little chunk right here. All right, I was pointing to the little blue chunk that is to the west of I-15. That's part of the problem right there, is that should be more with the west instead of with the southeast.
Okay.
Councilor Ellsworth?
I'll put my hand down. I was misunderstanding something.
Okay.
Okay, so let me just comment. This is addressed to Mr. Shipley in particular. I feel good about separating Grandview from the west side. I will vote consistently for that concept. If you want to do some horse trading, give me my fourth vote on 75.
I already told you it wasn't one of my top votes, so I have no problem with that. I don't think this one has a chance of getting through, but
What I'm saying
Let's
is
kill it.
I'll vote no on 67 if you vote no on 75.
done. They're both dead.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, 2 maps gone.
What was 75? Wow, okay.
75 is the
We went from having
gerrymander.
none eliminated to having 2 eliminated, and just like that. All right.
Progress.
That's progress. Okay. So, very interesting. All right. None of this has gone the way I thought. Okay. This is the fun part of politics. All right. Let's move on to the next theme. We have a theme, right?
So, okay, so we're done with this one.
This one was, so 34 made the first cuts, surprisingly. So that one stays for now.
Right.
Let's go on and move on to now the
The
next.
next theme, sometimes known as the Purple Monster, is the West Side plus Southeast edition.
Okay, so
So map number 31, also known as map C.
now in the spirit of George, these 2 themes now have multiple maps. So do we want to discuss the theme in general, like I like the Purple Monster or I don't, or do we want to just go through map by map and say, I don't like this one or that one and continue to try to eliminate?
My preference would be to just go one at a
All right,
time, but
let's do it.
if I'm in the minority, I'm fine doing it the other
Is
way.
anybody opposed to that? Okay.
I am happy to make a comment on the purple monster. if that-
Yeah,
if
I
that
think,
helps.
yeah, comments are great.
Can we define the purple monster again? So I understand what we're referring to.
Chair?
Yes, please.
Ms. Ellsworth's trying to speak.
Go ahead, Counselor Ellsworth.
What was the purpose? You were just clarifying, Mr. Chair?
I wanted to just be reminded what purple monster meant as a technical term.
As a technical term, do you want me to clarify that?
No, I've been clear. I've been told.
Oh,
So.
okay. But I'm asking Travis, what's the path that we're taking now? I didn't catch.
Okay, we're going to continue on as we were with just addressing map by map. But if people
Okay.
have comments about the themes in general, they're welcome to offer those. So Bill, if Counselor Fillmore, you wanted to make a comment about the west side and southeast.
Four maps that fit that description.
Thank you.
Yes. The comment I would make is this is not a up or down type thing on the purple monster, but just initially when we started seeing the purple monster maps, it just didn't look right to me. And but the more I have thought about it, in order to accommodate taking Grandview out of the west side, this makes sense. There are some commonalities between the far southwest and the far southeast. My concern is on some other maps where we do have a purple monster effect. Sometimes some of District 2 gets axed at the bottom. And I don't want to see that. I think there's commonalities with those residential neighborhoods in the far southeast. And I'd hate to see, for example, Provost cut off just to satisfy some numbers. If we're going to do a purple monster, I think it's got to end on State Street. That's the only
Okay.
thing
I'll make a comment about this map. I think just personally for my district, this is probably my least favorite of the purple monster type of maps. It just seems a little wonky. If we're going to go this route, I would say the ones that keep Grandview a little bit rounder make more sense to me. But again, in the spirit of trying to be accommodating and flexible, there's nothing principally wrong in my mind with this type of with this type of for my district, but it's probably my least favorite. So I would get this a vote no.
I will
on this
add
one.
a note to that.
Counselor Ellsworth?
Yeah, I think everybody already knows how I feel about the purple monster. It defies the purpose of a district to have a district that transects or that includes opposite sides of the city, the northwest and the southeast. So I just cannot support that. Like, what is the point of having a district at that point when the person who represents you lives literally on the farthest side of the city and has no familiarity with where you live, the schools your kids go to, the streets you drive on, the sidewalks you use? It doesn't make sense to me. Look at this. The cemetery is in the purple monster, and so is Provo High. Those are completely different parts of town, folks. People will not feel represented, and we will have just moved the problem from one part of town to a different part of town.
Thank you, Counselor Shipley.
So I was just going to agree, Chair, with your comment about the top of this one for Grandview is kind of strange in my mind. Central has some, I don't know what Rachel would think about, but it seems kind of strange too. Yeah, seems like we're grabbing some things into Central that, probably should be in that Eastern district. To Shannon's point, and I've made this before when we first started looking at this, I think there's some commonality, even if they don't, I think there's some commonality in that there's just a lack of connectivity, with some of these areas. And so I think there's some commonality, even though geographically they are very different. I think from the bottom of District 1 to the top, there's probably just as much distance as there is from one side of this district, the purple to the side, or at least similar. I mean, we're talking about a significant distance geographically from the bottom of this green to the top. And we're also talking about communities that have some differences too, for Bill's district there. The taking the BYU campus and then going all the way up into the top of this map, there's some significant differences in community there as well. And part of the reason that we had a vote on getting to 6 districts is that we thought, hey, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be a pain point for these districts somewhere, right? We're not going to be able to keep all the communities together. And so there's again, I guess I'm going back and saying there's no perfect map, but this particular one of the purple monster maps is probably my least favorite. So I would vote this one down.
All right, so votes against this particular map. All right, there's more than 4. We'll put it that way. All right.
Hey, can I add one comment here?
Yeah, Councilor Ellsworth, go ahead.
Thank you. The other objection that I have to the purple monster, besides the fact that it includes this giant, geographically massive part of the city, is that these areas are the highest growth parts of the city. And so over time, I mean, housing's being built right now. Hundreds of units are being built right now. Along State Street, hundreds of units are going to be built at Norda Medical School. Hundreds of units are being built on the west side. And so this purple area is exploding in growth. And over the next 5 and 10 years, it will be disproportionately underrepresented by one elected official. And then we'll necessarily have to go back and redraw this into 2 districts. And so if we can reduce the headaches for people in the future and think about how our city and population is growing over time, I think that's worthwhile.
Mr. Chairman, I see that just the absolute opposite. That what we're doing is we're isolating the growth area. And in 10 years, this is the area that will be most drastically affected by a new census. And it makes sense to contain it that way.
I actually can empathize with her point a little bit of we're basically the 2 largest growth areas are going to be together, and this is going to be a massive district over the next 10 years. So any other thoughts? Those who support this type of concept, any other thoughts on why you're okay with that or why that's a good thing?
Is there no way that we can make them redraw the precinct to get rid of that tail?
We requested, or GIS, I believe, requested dividing the Spring Creek and East Bay part, because that's actually in our current system as well. This isn't new, but they didn't get a positive response to that. So I'm not sure there's anything else.
So when I called the county, one thing they noted was that they're making a decision based on voters and we're making decisions based on population. So those 2 systems are not compatible. That's why they created this huge BYU district, because they thought, oh, our precincts are relatively even on voters. Well, it causes a big issue for us because it creates a 10,000 person district, even though it has similar voter numbers to other districts that are close to it, or precincts, sorry, that are close to it. So the 2 systems aren't compatible.
It continues to be an approach that just doesn't make sense to me. I've given this speech before, I'll keep it short, but state statute says based on population. We're putting an overlay on this that's not required. And we're still going to end up in districts that represent the same number of people, whether they vote or not. We're responsible for the same numbers. And to try to add another layer on, I think adds a complexity. This whole exercise, it's unnecessary. So what if things change in the future and people vote differently? I mean, we should say, great. Every district should try to get their people to vote more. They shouldn't be relying on past figures and try to create districts based on voting numbers, because we represent not just voters, we represent non-voters also.
Thank you. Wayne Parker had a comment.
Let me just comment on a couple of things. As we began to look at this redistricting process, I think we started with 49 precincts in Provo. And as we started to play with this, trying to divide it into 5 or 7, became just, essentially impossible to find a good answer there. So we worked really hard with the county. I think we got up to 62, 3, but we pushed the county as hard as we thought we could push them to increase the number of precincts in large measure because it gave us more flexibility. Now, from the county's perspective, if we ever go back to in-person voting, which if you're following at least the Republican county conventions of late, there's a strong push to go back to in-person voting, then you have to have an election judge for every precinct. And that puts pretty substantial burden on the county to fund elections when you've got a lot more precincts than you used to have. So it was kind of a delicate balance of trying to figure out what we could do to increase our flexibility and what we couldn't do to negatively impact the county clerk operation. So again, it was hard. We spent a lot of time talking to the county clerk's office about ways to make this map drawing a little bit easier for us. But it is, and Councilor Fillmore is right, it is a real challenge. The county clerks have a tendency to see this, and as do the county parties, see this as, the more divisions you create, the more difficult it is to have cohesive legislative districts, which is their big priority. So it's a tricky balance. I think we pushed it as far as we could before the county just said, we're done talking to you about this.
Okay. Yeah. We have about 30 minutes left, so let's try to keep moving along. Thank you.
So map 64 would be the next one in the west side and southeast series.
Okay. Comments or votes? Go ahead. We're at 64. Is anyone opposed? Councilor Ellsworth?
To the one on the screen,
Yes.
I'm opposed.
Thank you. Councilor Whipple?
I'm also opposed.
Okay.
May I ask Councilor Whipple what she doesn't like about it?
So this has the same drawbacks that we've talked about with the purple monster. Though I do feel it with some affection because you have its little mouth on the side opening to the lake and the little tail at the other end. It's cute. So opposed to the purple monster. I also don't like the way the downtown goes to the east of 9th East there in those two precincts. That seems like a weird incursion into the east side. I also think that those parts of Dixon are more properly with the downtown than they are with Grandview.
Setting aside the cuteness factor,
Yeah.
I'm just, I wanted to ask about the tail. That can't be high population. Is that a minimal number of residents?
I think it's geographically a pretty large precinct. That's why it,
Geographically, yes, but wouldn't it make more sense to add that to District 2? And, yeah.
So in order to add that to District 2, it goes all the way over to University, that chunk. And in order to make the west side big enough, you would also have to take out this little chunk of Franklin.
But if District 2 has enough numbers here, why would you be taking numbers?
To make the west side big enough.
Because the numbers in the tail are that big?
Yeah, so it's not just the tail. This precinct is this whole area.
Mhm.
So it's everything to the east of
Oh.
University.
All right, that's one solid precinct.
It is.
Uh-huh.
So originally I wasn't opposed to Purple Monster because I thought if you just did everything west of the railroad, that would make sense. But because it includes this area to the northeast of the railroad and this tail, that's why the Purple Monster doesn't work for me.
I see.
So I had high hopes for it and they were dashed as I looked into it more.
Councilor McKay.
I'm good being against this one.
Okay, so votes against. Let's do this again. Please put your hand up or down if you want to vote against. Thumb up or hand down, or hand up or thumb down. So we have Counselor Whipple against, Counselor McKay against, Counselor Ellsworth against.
And it wasn't Shannon again?
Yeah, she was against.
I want to just, I'm still wrestling here with the purple monster concept for the reasons that Counselor Ellsworth articulated. I'm really hesitant to support the idea, but can we quickly just flash forward? Because I'm just not remembering which ones I liked. Among that concept, I'm willing, to keep one in the mix or maybe two, but were there 4 of them?
There were 4 total in this mix. Mount 28 and Mount 33 are also in here.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I'm not really thrilled with any of them. So I guess I just haven't been so strongly opposed to them that I'm voting them down because I'm not sure which one is the worst.
Let's flash forward to the next one again, please.
28.
So based on what Counselor Whipple said, I would probably vote no on the previous one then, in favor of this one, if we're picking the lesser of two evils. So please go to the previous one. Sorry, Malia. So I'm going to vote no on 64, and that'll kill 64.
Okay.
All right.
So move to map 28.
Map 28. Can we compare this one to the next one? Sorry.
So now comparing 28 to which?
28 to 33. So if you're gonna keep a purple monster, it needs to be 28 or 33. You have 2 choices if you want to keep the purple monster.
And 33 contains Provost in District 2 and 28 does not. Am I reading that correctly?
It's this little piece here that changes. is
Right,
all.
and that's the Provost area, if I'm not mistaken. And then I have a little bit more of a Joaquin or something there. Okay. I suppose if I had to have a choice between the purple monsters, 33 would be the one I could stomach the best.
That takes you out of Joaquin. Is that right?
No, it concludes Provost in my district.
I think they're verbalizing that George and Rachel.
There's a portion of Joaquin that I still retain, but
You prefer 33 as well? Over 28?
If I like 33, the best of the purple monsters, none of which I like.
Okay, so we've got,
yeah.
But I think we should just move forward to 33.
okay. So does anyone have a strong opinion against keeping 33 over 28? I support 33 over 28 as well.
Hold on,
Okay, so we're going to
Sure,
keep,
28 again.
just a sec.
we know Counselor Ellsworth is opposed
I'm okay.
to any purple monster.
So who's no on 33?
Rachel Whipple, George Hanley.
No.
Oh, no, they're
28.
in
that we
favor of
voted on.
33, sorry.
In favor?
As opposed to 28. Let me say this. If they had to choose between a purple monster, they prefer 33 over 28.
Okay, so you've got how many no's already?
You've got enough no's to kill this one. To kill 28. Sorry. So of the purple monsters, 33 survives. Great. Okay, now we are on to,
So the next category, I called Central and Southeast. And there are 3 of these. Yeah, 3 of these. This first one is Mount 93.
so I'm most interested to hear from Counselor Ellsworth and Counselor Whipple, how they feel about a sort of combined central / southeast
Just real quick.
district. Go ahead, Counselor Ellsworth.
I don't like this one. So many of these kind of blow up my district, right? And this one puts my district into technically 3 different districts. It also draws me out of my district. So I'm not in love with this one. It doesn't really, I don't know. I just don't like it. I think that that part of Ironton and Mountain Vista or Spring Creek doesn't have that much in common with downtown. There's just very different needs. So I don't know that this really serves the people in my district.
So given Councillor Fillmore's objection to making drastic changes, I think all of these would be eliminated because of how much they completely change Shannon's district, where you get the voters divided up into 3 new precincts. As far as the downtown, you end up adding downtown to the southeast. Both of those are areas that are seeing lots of development right now. That's like the only thing I can think of in common with those areas. All of them end up kind of splintering those pioneer neighborhoods, that grid area, into multiple districts. So that breaks those up. Of these, I think I dislike most number 100 because the downtown is this weird starfish looking thing. I'm opposed to that. That looks just really, really terrible for it. But with this one, 93 sharing BYU, you really lose a lot of the downtown commercial area that's going up Freedom. That's no longer in the same district. You know, it really fractures that area. So I'm very uncomfortable with it. With the 85 better balanced, you do have a lot of the downtown that's still together. So you have downtown plus the southeast. But like I say, I really think those are drastically different communities, and the way that it changes that southeast district so very much, I think, is detrimental.
Thank you, both of you, for your opinions. Councilor Ellsworth? You have your hand up.
Sorry, my hand just stays up because I don't put it down. I'm used to someone else putting it down. I'll chime in when I have.
All right, sounds good.
In light of their comments, does anybody else have an objection with moving forward with 85 from this round and just eliminating the other 2?
My concern would be that 85 cuts off the residential area in the far southeast, east of State Street.
So does that cut off Provost and Provost South? No?
I'm not sure what
No,
that neighborhood is.
At least
It's,
part of Provost South
Provost South,
would
yeah.
be in the central one.
Yeah, I just think that makes no sense.
I mean, I have reservations about this model as well, but I think for me, the sharing BYU might be, well, I don't know, Rachel, just between better balanced and sharing BYU, I wonder, Rachel and Shannon, if you have any comments about those. Those, from my district's point of view, those are okay. The other ones I'm not, 100 I'm not very keen on, but if I'm sort of feeling about these models as we were talking about the Purple Monster, I'm not a big fan of any of them, but I'm trying to find one that I could say is my
Comment, sorry.
least disfavorite of the group, and I'm thinking it's either 85 or 93.
I'm wondering if we just eliminate all 3 of these, the entire group. If the concept's not working, we don't have to advance any of the maps from it.
That's
Well,
exactly what I was going to say.
It seems like 100 is out. There doesn't seem to be any support for 100, right? So can we?
Is that right? Because that's the one that does include Provost South in District 2.
Yeah, but I think you're in the minority on that, Bill.
Am I the only one that cares about that? My corpse being dashed?
All right, I need to know who wants to eliminate map 100.
Sorry.
I want to eliminate it and all the variations
To
of it.
eliminate it.
Okay, that map 100 is eliminated. So we now have,
So who voted against it? Was that 1-6?
it was 5-2. I didn't really say anything, so we'll call that a, I'm okay with it vote, but, okay. So that leaves us in this group, what is left?
3 and 85.
93 and 85 are remaining. We need to choose between one of these two.
Hey, Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
do we need to pick between two of these?
No,
Is
we
there-
don't.
Is there
If we want to
more people
eliminate
that
both, we can.
really want?
Well, I guess
Okay.
I would just say,
One
Councilor
of the
Ellsworth,
concerns,
well, let me ask you this. If the other themes don't survive and you had to choose between this theme or the purple monster, if those were your last options, if you eliminate this, then you don't have this as an option. So if you're comfortable with the purple monster over this, then I would say, sure, we can go ahead and push to eliminate this entire theme, but just know that it might leave you with only the purple monster.
I think it makes sense, Mr. Chair.
well,
Have one for the theme to just keep whittling away and leave this outstanding.
She was going to answer.
Go ahead, Councilor.
Mr. Chair, I'll just add, I just don't think that we need to have like a false binary choice like that. I think if there's 4 or 5 who want to eliminate all of these, I'm comfortable doing that. And one of the concerns that we should look at with this is that I think this takes BYU into 4 districts. And if anyone is concerned about BYU students being underrepresented, this is probably the one where they're most dispersed into 4 different districts. From what I can tell, I don't have all of them in front of me. And so this might be the one that most marginalizes students, if that's a concern.
Ms. Ellsworth, if I could comment to that. I mean, I actually, in some ways that there is a logic that would say that's the better way to handle the BYU districts, is to spread them out more evenly, because of the way that it sort of mitigates the problem that it presents to any one district to have most of it. I'm not necessarily arguing in favor of these models. I'm just saying that concerns me far less than the fact that these maps feel like, to me, they're carving up downtown a little bit unnaturally, and that worries me more than carving up BYU. I thought carving BYU up a little bit was actually a goal, whereas I thought a consolidated downtown was a pretty high priority for the council. And I'm not convinced that any of these southeast downtown models solve that problem very well. I don't mind. I do think there's I've said this before. I do think communities of interest are valuable, but I find myself increasingly less worried about that than I'm in a minority on this. I don't think you should have random boundaries drawn, but every district's going to have some diversity. Every district should. I think that's actually healthy for a district to have some diversity. It makes the counselors more answerable to a variety of different issues that the city confronts than if they're just representing one set of issues. So I like a little diversity there. So I'm not philosophically opposed to these ladder maps on those grounds. I feel like I'm opposed to them mainly because they're so disruptive to our current system, and I just hadn't felt the urgency of making that kind of a disruption. So that's why I've been more conservative on finding adaptations that are mitigating some of the problems we have currently and not disrupting too much. And these feel very disruptive to me.
Can I add a 30-second response there?
Sure.
I'll just say I do generally agree with Mr. Hanley on that. And I'm only presenting the fact that the BYU area would be fragmented into 4 areas as a negative thing because citizens have presented that to me. And so it's just a different perspective, but I agree with what Mr. Hanley said.
Okay, I'm going to say, let's take a vote. Do we want to eliminate this entire theme? Who wants to eliminate this entire theme?
I do.
Okay, then let's just vote on each map because that's only two. So,
Can we please clarify, Rachel, you like 85, right? Rachel, you like 85 over 93, right?
85 and 93.
So let me.
The trick here, it seems to me, is that 85 takes more of the southeast corner into District 2 than 93 does. But then that affects the downtown. So they're both creating problems, different problems. But, you know, from my district's point of view, I think I would prefer 85 over 93. But I think from the point of view of having at least a more consolidated and good voting base in a new southeast district, to my mind, 93 seems the preferable one. So if I had to choose between those two, I would choose 93 over 85.
Councilor Whipple?
Looking at the southeast, I like the southeast portion of 93 better, just because you've got those three neighborhoods together. There's less downtown, so it's a much weaker downtown district.
Do you have a preference between one of the two? Does that mean you prefer 93 then?
I don't have a preference.
Okay.
My preference is none of these.
Okay.
Doesn't 85 keep more of the downtown together?
So 85 does have more of the downtown together, but you end up with this really long district that stretches all the way from the west side of Dixon down to Ironton Road, right? That's like longer than the northwest maps that you really hated. And those are very different areas, different interests and everything. So, you know, not only do you have the far side of Dixon and then Ironton and the central downtown, it's just too many different things in one area or in one district.
Okay. We either need to eliminate one of these maps, eliminate both, or keep both. So nobody's shown a real strong preference.
I was expressing a preference.
George,
Expressing a preference for 93. It's not something I feel, you know, super strongly about, though.
Perhaps to save time, if we just do a vote on each and just keep going
Okay.
through and get back to the
we're
beginning.
going to vote on 85. Thumbs down, hands up or thumbs down for 85.
Thumbs up or thumbs down for 85?
Okay.
Okay, 85's out. Thumbs up or thumbs down on
93.
93.
Are we?
Well, sorry. I'm sorry.
I think they both got eliminated. We're done here. Move on.
Sorry. Give me a hand up if you don't like 93. Okay, so there are only,
I
so
don't.
93 remains for now. Okay. All right, so now we have what maps?
We have one more map we haven't looked at yet, and I was not able to assign it a clever name. So it's map 113.
Okay,
What you will.
comments on map 113, real quick. Go ahead, Councilor Whipple.
Okay, this one has the South Franklin with the west side, but it is not a purple monster. It does not have Grandview with the west side. As I see it, those are your three options to make the west side work. So this, for me, is one of the least defensive west side consistent maps that we can do. It does have a strong downtown area. I would probably change a little bit on the east side of my precinct, because I think the Shakespeare part of Mazer neighborhood actually fits better with the east side than it does with the downtown side. That 9th East line or 7th East where State Street comes up. Actually, yeah, that little chunk feels more like the east side to me. This looks like it's got Grandview and the hospital together. I don't know. That seems to be okay to me. So I'd like to hear what other people think about that.
If we're talking about least offensive, I find this is a pretty good map. I like the fact that you've got a relatively unified downtown. I like the fact that the southeast is unified. And I like the fact that we've got a more compact block for the west. So I'm not opposed to this one.
This is one of my top choices.
Okay, this one's
I have a comment.
based on, oh, go ahead, Counselor Ellsworth.
I don't like this one. I know Mr. Hanley will disagree, but I think that the areas south of Center Street don't identify with the tree streets in that area to the north. They feel like they are different. And I feel like they are different. So I don't know that this preserves communities of interest. I feel like folks in the southeastern part of town will feel forgotten. That's my comment. It also looks like downtown is gerrymandered. So that could just be precincts.
Counselor Whipple.
What I think is most interesting about this is we end up with one east side, one north, a Grandview, and a west side with a central hub. And so that does necessarily shift the districts around a little bit. It changes the way we're representing the city. So that, I think, is a significant difference from what we currently have. I think if we wanted to we could check with the districting tool to see if maybe we changed that one little precinct for one of the Joaquin precincts. Maybe that would make the downtown area look less funky and less gerrymandered. And if those number work, then that might help it a little bit. It doesn't address Shannon's concern about the south half of the west side not feeling aligned with the east side, not feeling aligned with the north half of the east side. But I like that all of those people there on the foothills are together.
Counselor Hanley.
Yeah, Counselor Ellsworth and I have talked about this a little bit. This has some appeal to me, but obviously it feels to me also pretty significant for the southeast. I mean, one thing that it does do is it sort of decenters, not just to the eye, but the tree streets are included now in a very diverse and vibrant voting body that they hadn't been previously. So I actually think that bodes well overall for anyone who represents this district. They're going to be answerable to some pretty significant voting districts south of Center Street, whether or not they share the same interests. And Councilor Ellsworth and I have had maybe some slight disagreements over that. I don't think they're significant disagreements. I mean, I've lived in both areas, so I don't want to overplay the significance of my own perspective, but I did feel confident that whoever represented this district would find a lot of commonalities. There are a lot of commonalities with the interface with the foothills, the Bonneville shoreline, and there are similar issues with parking and over occupancy issues in both areas. I think where it really starts to diverge actually is just at the very southern tip and over into the western side where that's whole new terrain. But I think what's most regrettable is that it cuts Councilor Ellsworth out of her own district, which gives me a lot of pause. But it solves some problems. I would maybe just echo what Councilor Whipple was just saying. And I know Chair Hoban didn't want us to be doing too many things on the fly here, but if putting that Joaquin corner, that southeast corner of Joaquin back into the downtown doesn't skew the numbers too much, that would be preferable to me as well.
Can I comment again?
Counselor Fillmore first, please.
I I concur with what Mr. Hanley has said. I think it makes a lot of sense. I want to make sure what we're talking about with Joaquin, if we're taking that little square right there. That makes a lot of sense. That makes good sense. Yeah, what we're just saying here probably doesn't make any sense to somebody just listening. But if we adjust a couple of precincts, east and west, I think it looks a lot more compact.
I would just caution that sometimes adjusting just a couple of precincts totally blows up the population numbers. So I would just caution that if it were possible, if it probably would have been submitted, but the only time that we've been able to make one precinct switch is this little corner southeast in Councilor Whipple's district, because it's so low population, it's so small. But if you guys want me to make a map on the fly right now, I can, but I'm just saying it's highly unlikely.
It appears that staff has tried swapping those precincts and it didn't work as far as balancing.
Yeah, it's just balancing the populations is very difficult, especially in some of these precincts that have very high population.
The problem is those Joaquin districts have very high numbers, even though they're very, very low voting numbers.
And they're very small.
Can you try it where I give up that little corner of Mazer that I love, as well as the Shakespeare one, and then take on the Joaquin? Would that work? So the southeast two most precincts in the yellow, turn those both blue, and then turn the Joaquin ones yellow up there. Can you do one more or no? No.
No, that last one really.
That last one doesn't.
They're so high density, that's the problem.
Yeah.
So I just think it's very difficult to. So
those were the challenges everyone that participated faced with that map making tool. And I'm grateful for a tool that tells us instantly whether it works or not.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and vote on this particular map.
Map 113.
Anybody against it, please raise your hand or something.
Signify.
I'm opposed to it.
Councilor Ellsworth opposed. It looks like that one survived. So we need to know, how many do we have left remaining now?
So that we've gone through all of them one time. We now have maps 34, 33, 93, and 113. We like the threes. 28 got dropped.
So again, in numerical order.
So in numerical order, 33, 34, 93, and 113.
Are we sure 28 got dropped? I thought 33 got dropped in lieu of 28.
Okay. Tossing things. Okay, let's see. She has 31. I had like 6 no's on 31.
So did I.
Okay, good. Somebody's keeping up with me. So 34, because on 33, I didn't have any votes one way or another.
33 is in.
Well, I thought 33 was the one that yeah.
It was the only purple monster that
Right.
we held on to.
And then 34 is in.
And then 34 was the West Side and Grandview.
That's right.
And 67, was that out?
No,
you say?
67 went out with 75.
Remember you horse traded?
Yeah, there was a deal.
Okay, one comment I'll make is on 34, you can add that little corner into the central downtown district.
Oh.
So, and it does remain within the population numbers.
Which corner are we talking about?
34.
Right,
You've got 4 left?
Yeah.
Okay,
right here.
um,
And then-
Ryan, suggestions?
Is that your beloved?
So this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where the difficult decisions have to be made.
They're very unhappy that they're not.
I mean, from a standard protocol sense, the easiest way to explain doing something is someone to make a motion to approve one of those maps and vote on it. But I don't know that that matches the consensus that you've been trying to, the consensus idea that you've been trying to build so far.
Well, I think what I have been trying to build is not just get 4 votes, because I think there's several on here that could get 4 votes, but which ones will get 5 or 6 votes. That's what I've been trying to get to.
Good.
So I don't like the idea of just saying the first map to get 4 votes wins, because I think there's more than one that would have 4.
So the other option, I suppose, continuing the theme of kind of eliminating, is for someone to make a motion to eliminate one of the 4 and see if that vote passes.
Okay, Councilor McKay, do you have a suggestion or comment?
I'm good to make a motion.
Okay, you can.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote on the number 113.
What is your motion, to approve it or to eliminate it?
To approve it.
Okay, there's a motion to approve 113 from Councilor McKay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second by Councilor Fillmore. Discussion on the motion? Councilor Hanley.
I'm not ready to support this unless I'm confident that my favorite map is eliminated first.
So you make a substitute motion that we vote on your favorite map?
Yeah, how about that? Make it substitute.
Eliminated your favorite map already.
What's that?
I thought we already eliminated your favorite one.
It barely survived.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I we'll see what happens. It was 34. Could we pull it? So my substitute motion would be to vote on map number 34.
I'll second that.
And
Second,
I
okay.
just want to clarify why, again, I prefer this strongly to the others. I think this is much less disruptive to the southeast. I think this mitigates some of the problems that I've had in my district with the voting issue. I think it has a solid downtown representation. And I, with all due respect to my good friend, Councilor Fillmore, I'm not persuaded that that thumb that goes down there is a big problem. I think it's maybe slightly unnatural, but I don't think it just doesn't seem to me any different than if were attached to mine. And I don't know, I know there's some difference of opinion maybe on the west as to whether or not Grandview should be in the west or be its own district. I don't know what the strong feelings are exactly, but I'd be certainly willing to hear them in our discussion, but this would be my substitute motion.
Is there a second on that motion?
I
Oh,
seconded
yeah,
it.
sorry, Councilor Ellsworth seconded. Thank you. All right, additional discussion on the motion.
Yes, I would like to say that looking at Mr. Fillmore's district, the difference between this one and the one that's closest to the status quo, there are only 2 precincts that are different. So the status quo would include this little bit of, I don't know, what is that, Grandview-ish? And it doesn't include this. So this is really, really,
Carterville.
really similar to the status quo for Mr. Fillmore's precinct. So for being not very disruptive, I think it wins on that ground.
And I will just repeat that I'm okay to be a little bit disruptive. Obviously, that's not a high priority for me. For the West Side's sake, I think disruptive would be good. So as far as to George's point about the discussion on the West Side, I think this moves in the right direction from the status quo. Like I'll see that. I think it's better than the status quo because I think it has less of a concentration on Grandview than what we have. Having said that, there are at least 2 other maps that I think are serve the interest of a community of interest that has very different needs on the west side than what I think Grandview has. And I actually, I've got my mind around this idea of Grandview being this nice, this nice ball and these other ones. I think that makes sense to me. Anyway, I've said this enough already, but I'll just, it stands to repeat, I guess, one more time and with respect to this particular map, but I do think that there is a strong sense on the west side with the growth and with different connectivity issues, with I-15 that just make it an area that somebody needs to, be hyper focused on as it grows out, as we try to connect it better to the rest of the city and services of the city. And so I think that's what I was hearing from people as I was campaigning on the west side. Like I said, there are some strong opinions over there, and frankly, I don't think we need to bow to the few dozen people that are really loud on the west side about doing this. But I think there is something to it. That over the last 10 years, they've felt that there are some significant changes that are happening on the west side that someone needs to be not necessarily hyper focused on, but just aware of and making sure that they've lived it, they've been part of it. I think that does make a difference for representation. So among the four maps, this is my least favorite from a west side standpoint, but it's a step in the right direction relative to where the status quo is. So I'll cede that part.
I guess I'm curious, what is your favorite map?
I think of the four left, 33 and 113 are my two top maps. I think I slightly prefer 113. But I think they all create, I think for all of us, all these maps create some consternation in some way. There's not a perfect map, but I am pleased that all of these maps make progress for the west side. I'll just say that they all make progress for the west side. I think some just a little bit better than others. So that's how I break them down at this point.
Councilor Fillmore, go ahead.
I'm of the four that are left, 34 is probably at the bottom of my list, and no offense to my good friend George, but I just I've talked myself out of, over the past several weeks, having Grandview be part of the west side. I like what Mr. Shipley just said, that having somebody on the west side that is hyper focused on the growth issues there makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I also don't think it makes, I think Mr. Hanley's word was unnatural. The thumb coming down from the northeast and the center of the city, it seems unnatural to me. This doesn't look right. The other thing is that Mr. Hanley has, over the past couple of weeks, has talked me into the virtue of the BYU campus being the district number one. And I for lots of reasons, he's been very articulate in that regard. And so this changes that. But I also have come to really have an affinity for the concept of District 2 stretching the length of the foothills to the southeast and unifying that. I don't see the same stark distinctions between the southeast and the east that some people do. There's some wonderful, prosperous neighborhoods in the southeast, and I think unifying that from north to south makes sense to me.
So interestingly enough, I hear support for 113. I hear support for 34. I don't hear support for the other two maps. Strong support. So I almost wonder if we eliminate the other two and the final two maps are 34 and 113. Does anybody want to speak? I guess
I have a question.
we're still a part of the discussion here. Oh, go ahead, Councilor Ellsworth.
Yeah, what are the other two maps? Is it? I can't remember the other two.
Look at the other two real quick.
33, 93.
I'd like 33 for the reason that it centralizes the downtown area in a nice way. And also keeps Provost neighborhood in District 2.
Let me comment here, Mr. Chair. I know that some folks think that all of the east side is like very similar and has a lot in common. One of the reasons it's not very similar from north to south is that in the northern part, up by the tree streets, if you will, in the northern part of what the blue area, what's shown in 113, that's almost exclusively single family detached, except for student housing. In the southern part of the city, south of Center Street, there's a lot of multifamily, thousands of multifamily units that aren't student centric. Those aren't student housing. And so there is a difference, and people feel it, people know what it is, and it creates different kinds of schools and different kinds of communities. And so I will say that there is a difference there, where there is a lot, thousands of units of multifamily south of Center Street. And the schools are very different, right? I've said this before, there's really high free and reduced school lunch. So I don't see the commonalities that other people are seeing, and I'll just put that out there because I live there.
Thank you. I'd like to make a substitute motion that we eliminate map 93.
I would like to second that.
Okay, discussion on the motion.
That was quick.
Okay, no discussion on the motion. We'll go ahead and vote. All in favor of eliminating map 93? So in the chamber, it's unanimous. Counselor Ellsworth?
Yes.
Okay, we're down to 3 maps, folks. Yes. Yeah. Okay. We
I
will,
would suggest either moving the 3 remaining maps to tonight's discussion or back for.
okay, I'd like to make a motion that we, Brian, you have a thought?
Well, I had a thought, and maybe not even, maybe you don't even do anything with the results right now, but yeah, go ahead and go to Karen, please. It might be interesting to kind of do a ranked choice voting experiment and just have everybody rank the remaining 3 and just see what it wouldn't be binding, but it might inform your discussion if you knew that.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we do a ranked choice vote of the remaining 3 that then we bring back to our discussion tonight where we discuss these 3 final maps.
Alternatively, couldn't we just bring it back to the end of the work session?
We're not going to have time.
Sure.
Yeah, we have a closed meeting.
But if we did have time.
If we do have time, we can of course use that time if we'd like to, but I think we shouldn't plan on that.
Can I come?
Saying there's no way.
Here?
Yeah, let's bring this back
I
tonight.
have to,
Go
I
ahead,
have to
Counselor
step-
Ellsworth.
just to Mr. Fillmore's comments, I had to step out for a professional meeting at the end of this work meeting, and so I wouldn't be able to participate in that conversation.
And just frankly, we're not going to have time.
Okay.
So I'll make, like I said, make a motion that we do a ranked choice voting per Brian's suggestion. And then we come back tonight and discuss these final 3 maps and we share that ranked choice voting as part of the discussion.
Well, I also suggest that we ask staff to prepare that ranked choice ballot. Okay.
All right.
Have that ready for
Staff,
us.
I make a motion that
will
staff, okay, thank you.
I will second your motion.
All right, perfect. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
I seconded it. I seconded Elizabeth, sorry. You're going to be so glad, Elizabeth, when these maps are done.
All right, all in favor? Counselor McKay? Yeah. Okay, unanimous in the chamber. Counselor Ellsworth?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone. It's really tough, and a special thanks to staff. And gosh, sorry, Karen, to keep you here. All right. We did make significant progress, and I appreciate that. And good job, everyone. All right. Well, we're not supposed to break until 2:45. We'll keep going because due to time. Our second piece of business is a presentation regarding the fiscal year 2023 Budget Council Office. John Magnus is out, So Malia is going to be presenting. Take it away, Malia.
So this will be fairly quick, so we should be able to make up some time, hopefully. Let's see, Michael, you just want to go to the next one? So this is just a reminder of the general plan goals as they relate to our office and staff as what we're working towards and helping you guys, help support you guys for these things. Next. So just some key achievements. There's obviously a lot more, but just for sake of time, we wanted to bring up just 4 key ones that we've been working on in the past fiscal year. So preservation of open space, that includes Bridalveil Falls, the Utah Lake Resolution, ongoing work with foothills protection, and creating of a water conservation committee, redistricting, which we are doing currently, general plan update, and then the Southwest intent statement for the development plans out there. Fiscal year 2022 restorations. These are restorations that we made because they were paused or stopped due to COVID kind of conservation budget efforts. So that included an internship, and we had an intern this past year, and we're hiring a new intern to help start takeover in April or May. Contract services, trainings and conferences, which is where John is currently right now in Austin. And council programs, neighborhood program, and neighborhood matching grants. So bringing those back so neighborhoods can apply for the money for projects to help better their neighborhood. So in the next slide, then we're going to just talk about requests for the upcoming fiscal year budget. There's really only 3. The first is upgrading the new council chambers for Zoom meetings. The council staff, we took a little field trip over to the West Jordan City Hall, and their council chambers, they used some CARES Act funding and made their council chambers into a Zoom room, and it's quite amazing, actually.
Malia, I'd like to say, so this was brought up in our leadership meeting, and given the nature of hybrid meetings moving forward, I think it's absolutely imperative that we have a Zoom room style of, that we have the technology to be able to do that easily. And I'm actually really surprised that the council chambers were not going to be set up for that. So I like 100% support whatever budget we have to do to make that work. Yeah.
And Karen and John have done some preliminary talks with IS about what the current system is that was planned. And the system that is in there that's being installed now those decisions were made prior to COVID. So they weren't anticipating everything being on Zoom. So they've already had talks with them, and the same company that's doing the technology as it is right now is also who did the Zoom room for West Jordan. So it'd be fairly easy to then kind of pull from their plans and make that work for ours.
Yeah. So
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Councilor Ellsworth.
Yeah, this is something that I've talked to multiple counselors about, and my sincere hope is that we do this before the formal budget process, and that we use the funds we have today to get it done ASAP before the building is complete. Not do a retrofit, but do it before we really launch into the budget process. I think this needs to be immediate, and I'm hoping that it's on the agenda in 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 weeks, in April.
Yeah, I support that as well.
Mr. Chairman, I'll bet if you took a quick poll, you'd find you have almost unanimous support for that.
And I'm kind of sick of asking people what they think, though. Just kidding.
So first steps
That
towards
was-
dictatorship.
That was relatively Putin-esque, wasn't it?
Careful, you'll end up thrown out a window, Bill. So Brian, I don't know what type of request is being made or what we need to do, but I think there's unanimous support for this on the council, that we make sure that this Zoom, that the technology for our council chambers, and I would say as well, work meeting space, wherever we're going to have our work meetings, that we want to appropriate a budget to this to do this before the building's complete because it will then just be more expensive. So how do we go about doing that?
Well, I mean, your two options are if you have money somewhere in your budget to do it, then you can just, as leadership, direct that it be done using funds that are in your budget. If you need an appropriation, you should make a motion to have the administration bring an appropriation to you.
Malia, do you know if we have budget or need appropriation?
Not fully for all those specs of what we're looking
So we
at.
will need an appropriation.
Yeah, in part.
Mr. Chairman, do we have some sense of the cost factor here?
Yeah, I think that's what we need to know then.
Yeah, Karen and John have a better estimate of that. When we were talking to IS and the company originally, they said around anywhere between 80 and 100,000, but John and Karen have the more definite numbers on that.
Okay.
Would that be offset to some degree by what's already budgeted for the council room?
That's in addition to what is already there. Yeah.
I'll just reiterate that I mean, this is a building we're going to have for 50 to 70 years. And long after we're gone, council members will appreciate the fact, and staff, that they can easily support hybrid meetings. And the residents, yes, for the residents to be able to participate easily as well. So, how do we do this, Brian?
Well, I think our biggest challenge is I think you need 10 days notice for the appropriation. So if
We need to know the number and we have to give 10 days notice. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can fudge it a little bit by noticing a high number and then having the actual appropriation be lower than that. You just can't go the other way as far as the noticing and the appropriation. And I don't know if Mr. Parker wants to weigh in on the administration's thoughts, but I mean, one possibility is instead of, you could make a motion asking council staff to work closely together with the administration and bring to the next meeting either a proposal or an appropriation if the noticing requirements are able to be met. I'm kind of spitballing here, and Wayne's going to go talk to Kelsey. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think what you're kind of expressing, one, your intent, and the formal action, the formal question is whether you need an appropriation or not. And I don't know that we know that at this particular moment, but you could certainly make a motion asking staff to move as quickly as possible to come back to you with a concrete proposal, up to and including an appropriation if that's necessary.
Got it. Hey, Quinn. Well, I'm waiting. I think Wayne is asking a question that might be relevant. So thank you from the peanut gallery.
Do you want me to, the next one is very quick.
Let's keep going then.
Okay, the second item is just inflationary increase. Mostly this is for printing, code book printing, and then also physical like paper printing, just inflationary costs that we have to adjust for. We want to go back to the first item now.
Wayne, did you have a comment or an insight, a budget for us? Anything?
So my conversation with Scott was, number one, we have not seen a change order yet on this change order request. So I'm sure that's in process.
Yeah, John has taken the lead on this, and I don't think there has been an official change order met because we didn't want to put one in until we figured out what the budget and where everything was.
Yeah. So again, I think we just need to know what that number is. And again, as I chatted with Scott, probably the most likely way to do this would be to take some of the remaining amount in the legacy CIP fund and appropriate it that way. It doesn't hit general fund balance. But again, that would still require us to do 10 days noticing, which means we probably got to have at least a rough estimate tomorrow so that we can get something in the noticing website. So we'll be glad to coordinate with John and come up with it. If that's something you'd like us to do, I don't even know that we need a motion other than just to say that's the council's desire, and we'll just proceed on that basis.
Brian, so is staff clear that it's our desire that staff move very quickly to get us some sort of estimate, and so then we can notice an appropriation as soon as possible and have it voted
Yeah.
on at the next
And
meeting.
our next meeting is April 19th. So we have
3 weeks.
10 days. Yeah, we have a little bit more time, but yes, we can do
Okay.
that.
I'm kind of like assuming that everybody wants to make that happen, right? And so it's a relatively, I know it's a lot of money, but relatively small investment for a benefit that will last a long time.
Right. And in the final analysis, you'll get to vote on an appropriation, so you'll find out for sure. But we're certainly happy to run the numbers and get that noticed so you can take a vote at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Just a
Councilor
quick
Fillmore.
question perhaps for Mr. Henderson here. Is construction schedule such that the appropriation on the time schedule so indicated would not cause duplicative costs?
I think if we get to the point where I've actually seen the system we're talking about, I think then we could even be working in advance with the project to put it through the change order, all that, knowing that this is an appropriation that is most likely coming down the line from the council for the funding side of it. So we can put this on the fast track. This is, it's a positive development, but it has come later on in the project. So we just need to know what you want, and then we can deliver that, and then worry about the
You're
funding.
confident we're not so far down the road that this would cause excess costs retrofitting?
I think it'll be an addition to the room, but we have the existing conduit and infrastructure and have had these discussions along the way to be able to set the room. And I'm sure Kyle Hansen has expressed that as you talked about this more elaborate system. The hardest thing in a project like this that started, over two and a half years ago is predicting what technology is going to be at the end of the project. So
And what the
sometimes
needs
these
are,
things
yeah.
become part of
Yeah.
that.
So you could give the contractor a heads up as early as tomorrow morning.
I can, as soon as I know what I'm giving him a heads up.
Yeah, you got to know what the system is. Okay. So Malia, just please convey our sense of urgency to John and Karen as well, if Karen's in tomorrow. So
John will be in tomorrow. So
great.
And then moving the last item, this is an item that Cliff actually started before he left the city, and that's reclassifying the policy analyst positions. Currently, they're classified as management analysts. Cliff and John could speak more to this because they had conversations about this. And Travis, I don't know if they had a conversation with you about this, but I think the idea was just to classify as policy analyst.
So it's more consistent in the
Yeah.
industry for somebody in your position to be considered a policy analyst as opposed to classified as a management analyst. That's as far as I know. It does open up the pay scale a little bit to the upside. So somebody who might be tapped out at their current pay band, or actually I think it's the top band of the scale for their position, could then potentially get raises along the way as opposed to being topped out. So I think we need to know more information, I think, and get some thoughts from HR and,
Yeah. And I think John would be best to have that. He was supposed to be presenting today and have all this information for you. So
okay.
that'll be helpful when he's in tomorrow and he can follow up on these items.
Okay, great. Was that it for your presentation?
That's it for us.
So we'll get some more information on this reclassifying and then we'll communicate it. Then we can discuss it. I think we need to know from John though, so we know the urgency for the one item, but the other two items, what the sense of urgency is and
the inflationary cost is just a small increase.
And I think there's going to be no way around that. We're going to have to plan for that. But
we'll
okay.
get back to you. So
okay, thank you, Malia. And got us back on time. All right. I hadn't heard. He hasn't helped. Yeah, but I thought he was supposed to be back. No. All right. Our next item is a presentation regarding Downtown Provo Inc's yearly plans and budget. This is presented by Quinn Peterson, Executive Director, Downtown Provo Inc. Quinn, you got 25 minutes, but maybe save 5 or so at least for questions,
For sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, I gave city council and the mayor's office a little bit of crap for requesting PDF presentations because those are boring. So we're going to try to screen share here so that I can use Keynote, which will have some videos. Got to mute that. Okay. Muted. Got it. Cool. Let's figure out how to do this. Awesome. So I'll go as quick as I can. Most of you already know our program. We've been doing these things for a number of years now. For those of you that are new, yeah.
You can minimize this because it's like blocking.
You're right. You know what's funny is that mouse thing I was talking about. Here we go. Why does it keep doing that?
While we're waiting, I'm just concerned that Mr. Peterson's not wearing a hat today. I'm a little disappointed.
Okay, we muted and stuff. Okay, hang on.
He's also not wearing a Pendleton shirt. I mean, all sorts of problems.
Don't worry. Got a hat. Okay, we seeing this? I believe we are. So what we'll do is we'll run through kind of just a summary of our program, what we've done in the past, and then we're just making a request today. Our program really, when I summarize it for people, it breaks down into 5 buckets. There's a lot of overlap between some of these buckets, and the last one kind of encompasses how we take action regarding all of them. But the first one that we spend a lot of time on is residential awareness. You know, I took over about 6 years ago, and one of the things that was most frustrating to me was to hear stuff from our community about people who didn't know what downtown was, or, you know, I ran the shop Unhinged for 5 years, and people would come downtown and say, "Whoa, when did you guys open?" And I'd say, "We've been here for 5 years. Where have you been?" And so a lot of our effort is educating the public on what we have. The second one we do, and we'll go a little bit more in depth into each of these in a moment, but the second one we do is tourism awareness. We do a lot of work to provide printed materials, digital materials for visitors. And we also do a lot of work with the Convention Center and Explore Utah Valley to make sure we're bringing visitors so that we can accommodate their needs once they're here. The third one is all about creating a space. Our downtown is unique. And as the internet 15, 20 years ago took over a lot of the retail and energy emphasis funds, and as they compete with big boxes as well, downtowns only survive when they differentiate by creating an experience while you're there, so that we can have a place someone wants to show up and spend their time. Because I'll say a lot of our neighboring communities, or sometimes communities that we may compare our economies to, you know, they'd be willing to sacrifice a family if they could have a downtown like ours. Even though they may have a giant Target or a Costco, they don't have a downtown, and it's not something that you can just build tomorrow. And so creating that space is crucial. The fourth bucket is all about business services, whether it's through our lunch programs or different services, networking and connecting businesses with resources that are available so they can succeed. And the last one is all about advocacy. I personally spend most of my time on the advocacy element, and that is regarding policy changes. Sometimes they're easy things we do with administration to make tweaks about how things operate. Other times they're legislative changes that you guys see before your group. So the first one about residential awareness. One of the things that we do and the ways that we educate the residents, we have weekly emails. We have about we have like 12.5 thousand emails that we send out to, and we have 23.1% open rate right now, which is above average for that type of a service. This is a video that'll indicate, that'll show you what these emails look like. Hopefully you're already subscribed, but basically it just shows upcoming events, news information, and these will be unique, outstanding opportunities. We try not to just say, there's still a downtown, you should see it, but it's unique events that are happening. And then at the bottom, you'll see here, we have hyperlinks to the Covey Center events, to the Convention Center events, and so on. And so this is an email that goes out every week to the community so they know what's downtown. The next tool that's critical, and it's our most utilized tool to engage the public, is Instagram. Our Instagram is growing rapidly, and it's got a very high engagement rate. The city also has an Instagram, but we utilize our Instagram a lot more to share information about businesses and events and exciting updates. which ends up getting more engagement as far as we have more shares, more likes, more comments than some of the comparable Instagram accounts. Here's just a little bit of the data, just so that you can have a snapshot if any of you care about this sort of information. This just shows the last 30 days. It shows the percentage of our accounts that are engaged, and it's a very engaged following. Media. I spend a lot of time working with media, whether that's news that reaches out through magazines, newspaper, television, podcasts. We have a couple of just screenshots here of ones that we've done just recently. Since we last presented, we've done Good Things Utah twice. We've done a handful of other stories. We worked with the city when they put together the story with Doug Jessup. We did some live radio and podcasts with BYU Radio, and all of this is just talking about downtown. What do we have to offer? What are the new shops? What's our mural program? Why is downtown exciting, and why do people want to continue moving there for their businesses? Second bucket, the tourism awareness. One of the things that we do to activate this relationship is we work with our printed guides. I guess this won't pick up on the mic, so I shouldn't say much, but I brought a bunch of guides today because usually in the work session, we're really close together. I haven't been to one of these since we're down in this room. These are some of our printed guides that I'm going to hand each of you. These we distribute through the convention center, through the hotels, through the universities. We distribute about 30,000 of these every year. We've expanded from our restaurant guide to include our mural map, which some of you have seen. We also just finished designing our retail and entertainment guide. And not only do we have printed versions that we'll show you, but we also have digital versions that are available through our website. And we'll show you a video of how that works. I should have done both. So this is a little map of the walkability in the downtown. And one of the things that you should notice, I will just jump to the next one because it shows a video. This is how to access this information on our website. But the printed version has a little key in the bottom right-hand corner for the restaurants of the questions we get asked most about: who serves alcohol, who's open late, who's open on Sundays, who delivers, that sort of thing. Regular questions we get asked about that downtown area. Now, this is a tool on our website where we actually worked with your GIS department to upload these, and we have filters. One's for food, one's for the murals, one's for the entertainment. You can do this on desktop, iPhone, or Android. iPhone's been lagging a little bit since the most recent update, but it does all work. And it'll tell you information about each one of them. In fact, we don't need to watch the whole video, but when you go in and you look at the information about the murals, it'll say who the artist is, what's their story, what is the content, and so on. These are just some of the printed materials, but in addition to that, we also work with media, again, regarding tourism. Years ago, we kind of had to go to battle. I don't know that any of you remember this, Wayne, May, and Isaac will, but we had to go to battle with some of the county commissioners because they were trying to take away the tourism funding from our county that was bringing in marketing information, marketing materials to draw people into our county. As we worked to preserve the tourism funding, we reached out to the state and we asked for their support. As we got support from the state, we built a great relationship with the Governor's Office of Tourism, which has now turned into opportunities to highlight Provo on Visit Utah and the other resources that they send out to the community. Here are some examples of those. We're really fortunate in our downtown to have the most diverse cuisine in the state. What does that mean? It means relationships with the university, with people who go out on these year-long, 2-year-long missions for the LDS Church. They often come back with an affinity for a different culture or a family member from that culture. Because we have so many different entrepreneurs, we have restaurants that represent so many different communities in our downtown. And that's what the state tourism office has decided to highlight. We've done 2 different articles with them, and we're in the process of working on a new one at this very moment to highlight the diversity of the cuisine in downtown. Now, the third bucket, creating a space. Creating a space, it's interesting. It's kind of a unique new idea. In fact, it was 4 years ago that BYU, they changed their recreation management into experience design in the Marriott School. Because as we're learning to adapt into this new economy of how the internet interacts and social media interacts, creating an experience is how you differentiate from the digital universe. And the ways that we do that, you guys have seen throughout our downtown for quite a while. Christmas lights is one thing during COVID that we spent a lot of energy on. We were able to utilize some funds that the mayor's office helped us get. We got some COVID funds and we did our own fundraising that helped us pay to enhance the Christmas lights around the holiday season in the downtown. There's a photo. We'll keep going. The art stroll. The art stroll is another big event that we have. I'm going to show you something else. Shannon, I'm sorry you're not here, because you can't hear me. If you've seen this, if you've taken the opportunity to experience the art stroll, this little video will show you a little bit about what the art stroll looks like when it happens. It's every first Friday in our downtown. We'll have between 15 and 20 businesses that engage. We'll have several thousand people that come down to visit these businesses. Every one of the businesses that has a shop, has an artist featured, they'll mount these flags outside their building. This indicates, hey, there's an artist in there. When you're standing on Center Street or on University, you can see these. This map gets printed that shows where everything's located. It's convenient that there's a lag on what you see versus what I'm seeing, so I can describe it. But this is just us documenting on Instagram each of the different venues that pop up different artists. Now, what's neat is we go downtown during these events and we visit with the people who are visiting. And we ask them, have you been downtown before? It's an alarming number of the people that visit our downtown during the art stroll that have never been there. And they're coming because they're friends with an artist. They're family members of an artist. They're coming down from I don't know, Lehigh and up from Payson to do these things and to see these things. And this is their first experience and exposure to our downtown. It's a wonderful tool that we utilize to create regular activities and regular engagement with the public so that they can get familiarized with our downtown. The light strings, it's something that we put up. It's been 9 or so years now on Center. 4 years ago, we expanded that up University and we repaired and replaced sections that were missing along Center Street. And it's something that really helps activate our downtown in the evenings. It's something that every business in the downtown that's not within the corridor of the light strings complains about it, because that's where the walkability is, that's where the energy is, and that's where people want to spend their time. And so we're hoping to maintain and continue to expand, but it's a lot of maintenance. Maintaining these light strings is difficult. When we took all the light poles out and we powder coated them years ago, we ended up putting GFI plugs in all of them, which if you're not familiar, that's the type of plug you have in your kitchen or your laundry room that has a little breaker in it. So anytime it rains, a bunch of the light strings go out. So I have to go around with my pickup and my ladder and I go up and push the dumb little button on top so that they come back on. It's a lot of maintenance, but it's worth it because it's something that businesses care about. And as soon as their section goes out, I get a phone call. So it's a lot of effort, but it's worth it. Now, I could spend almost my entire presentation on the mural program and why it's important, because it's something we kind of started doing organically, and it's been one of the most important and successful things that our program has done. I'll talk a little bit about why, but ultimately the goal and the plan, we do a new mural every month. We've now done more than 40 murals in the downtown area. We also have the mural map, which I have provided you guys, that shows how to navigate that area and the digital version. Here's examples of a few of these. One of the reasons this is such a compelling program, not only does it create an area where you feel creative and you feel excited to be there, and there's kind of wonder and a spectacle as you come around every corner and you see these things, but it is almost impossible to resist the urge to document yourself by a mural. If you walk around downtown, you will see countless young people taking photos by these murals so they can post about them on social media. And you can wonder, are they saying, oh man, Provo's really lame when they post? All of them are saying something to the effect of, I went to school 10 years ago here. What's happened? Why is it cool now? Or they're saying, you know, this is such a fun thing that have you seen the new mural that just got done? Like this giant one we're showing here. This was the old dolphin wall. All of us were sad to see the dolphin mural go, but Luckily, we utilized the facade grant program, the federal dollars that help redo a facade, and we resurfaced this wall because it was falling apart, so the mural did go. This replaced it. This is Colby Sanford's piece. Colby Sanford is a full-time artist in our area, supports his family with his work. This was his first mural, and it's enormous on that wall. Other examples, the propane heaters. This was another program where we were able to utilize some of the COVID funds. This is not only something that allowed for the restaurants during COVID to have outdoor dining available, but it's a part of creating that atmosphere and that environment that when you're downtown, you feel like it's a unique space. It creates that space where you can park your car for an afternoon and spend time for that evening. You know, whether you have a place to eat or not, you're going to have a good experience with food, dessert, and activities. Events. Last year, we did the first car show. It was fantastic. I don't like hosting events myself personally because it's a load of work, but we've been doing more and more over the past few years. And the car show was the first because a lot of you know I've got all sorts of strange cars in my collection. So I brought my cars and my friends that have cars, and I thought this is an organic fit. We can make this work if no one else shows up. So it went really well, and we actually sold out. So the event went well, and one of the reasons it's unique. Some of you are familiar with the rooftop concerts that happened for years, and they're phenomenal. They were a huge part of re-energizing and activating the downtown. But we really were desperately trying to manage and maintain relationships with the businesses when we shut the street down for that event. One of the reasons they said that, even though overall, I need to make it clear, we and the business community support them and we want them to come back. But one of the biggest critiques from businesses who are a little bit more short-sighted were, this is just an event where high schoolers come for free entertainment. And they're right. People don't come to the rooftop concerts to spend money on site, but they remember downtown and they come back. Now, what's the difference with a car show? This is a bunch of old people with disposable income that come to car shows. And so the businesses who normally complained about the rooftop concerts, we didn't have a single complaint during the car show. And I think as we find a diversity of activities and events for our downtown, we're bringing in young high school students for live music, and we're bringing in old people with money. It helps out for the different types of shops. I mean, I'm not an old person with money, but I guess a car show is for me too. Halloween's always a huge event. 2021 was the time we did after COVID, because we didn't do one in 2020, and it was enormous. It was one of the biggest events that we've had. I mean, it was crawling with people to where we almost had to shut the street down. And that was the biggest complaint, was we should have shut the street down for this event, but we did not know it was going to be so beyond the capacity of the sidewalks. I don't know if Keith is here. He is. His wife came down and she even danced with our big MC guy. And we had a guy come down and he was the MC teaching everyone dances. And it was just a really fun time. Business services. When I gave this presentation earlier, I timed myself and I was 22 minutes, but I didn't time myself right now. So I have no idea where I'm at. But this is our second to last bucket. Business resources, things like the Lincoln Lunch, the lunches that we have that all of you have been to at one point, I believe. We feature new restaurant vendors, we feature different locations throughout the downtown, and we have presentations from different groups. We had the police come last time and talk about the new police chief introduced himself, and they're actually going to be hosting the next one to talk about relationships between the business community and the police department as far as registering their security cameras so they can have a network of this information. Not only does it provide a place where we can give resources to the businesses, but it provides a place where the city gets to engage with those businesses so that we can all be on the same page and we can be moving forward together. Training and resources. During COVID, where I ended up spending a lot of the time where we weren't having the lunches was connecting businesses with resources, whether it was through the federal government COVID grants, county COVID grants, city COVID programs, other businesses providing free resources for people who are negatively impacted during that time. The last category in the last bucket is the advocacy. This is where we take all the information from those other four buckets I've listed, and we take action. We decide, do we need to change policy? Do we need to change how we enforce parking? Do we need to change certain zoning ordinances? You're familiar with several that we've worked on historically. These three here are ones we're currently working on. You're familiar with the downtown walkability. We submitted a report in 2018 saying we're concerned about the downtown and its safety and the walkable nature of our downtown. TMAC worked with us. The mayor's office worked with us. We put together a big list with city staffers of what can be done. TMAC then prioritized and quantified all those. You guys adopted that list back in January or late December, and that's now moving through the system to take action of how we can change the downtown to improve. The Gateway, this is one you're going to see soon. None of you have seen it yet. I've talked with some of you about it. We're concerned that the Gateway between the freeway and Fifth West, there are no design standards. We're concerned because it can look crummy. And we don't want it to look crummy. When you get off the freeway and you come into the downtown, we want there to be standards. And so we have filed for a request that is now in the agenda to go to Planning Commission, which will come to you soon. But that's a concern that the businesses downtown have. The next one is regarding building codes. As we're struggling with affordable housing and we're struggling with a unique downtown living environment, some of the building codes don't make sense for the downtown buildings. Some of the policies that are citywide regarding building units and residential units, they don't make sense in specific zones. And so we should be addressing these areas zone by zone, understanding the needs of these diverse living types. Our request, that's a summary of the program and the things we've been working on since I was last here. But our request is, our program received $150,000 from City Council, from the city's budget, back when it was created in 2011. And that was the annual renewal. After a couple years, it decreased to 125. Unfortunately, we went through a period of time where we didn't have any good directors, and that decreased from 125, a little lower, down to 75. I took over 6 years ago when that budget was at 75, and we've been operating at 75 ever since then. The difficulty's been, as we have become more and more robust and we're expanding the programs, things like our mural program, we're hoping to expand that into more of a mural program that incorporates the utility boxes in the downtown. We want to be wrapping those utility boxes in vinyl art, because not just does it create a cool environment and it creates interest, but we've had problems with graffiti and vandalism on those utility boxes. I hire a kid that cleans those boxes every Monday. And we don't want to have garbage and offensive material on those boxes. And what we've learned with our mural program, the best way to eliminate vandalism is to put art there. And so we want to be covering these boxes, and that's a part of what this $25,000 ask will cover. We want to increase the budget annually from 75 to 100,000. Now, we're an extremely scrappy program. We're scrappy because we are a nonprofit. I am the director. The cooler that holds all the drinks for our lunches is in my garage. All of the flags are in my barn. You know, I stitch the edges of all these flags and I put the poles in and I mount the thing on the building. After the Freedom Festival's over and they leave their barricades shutting down the street and the businesses go crazy, I push them all with my Tundra off to the side of the road. So the types of things that we're doing regularly, it's because we're scrappy and we have the ability to do that. I only bring that up because $25,000 with our program will go a very long way compared to some other places where this money could be spent. Ultimately, we hope this makes sense to you as we've been showing our value and our worth over the past 6 years. We are looking at all sorts of ways to expand our fundraising. I do raise more money than we used to from the business community. And we're just hoping that we can expand the support from the city with our budget. I don't know how long we went. What questions do you have?
You're right on time. Just first, Quinn, thanks for all the work you guys do to continue to revitalize and bring more business to Downtown Provo. I guess the question I would have is, where would this 25K come from, you think? I mean, this has to come from somewhere, right?
Won't we be playing with that later when we actually look at budget numbers?
Okay.
Quinn, a question for you.
Yeah.
What is your total budget when you take into account business contributions?
It's a moving target a little bit because we have different ways of monetizing through banners, and we sell UTA passes and we have a markup there sometimes. So it'll range anywhere between 150 to 250, depending on the year.
Is that including the city money or in addition?
That does. That includes the city money.
Okay.
Any more questions for Quinn? Okay.
Well, that was easy.
Oh,
No
Councilor
hard
Hanley.
questions.
I don't have a hard question. I just want to thank you. You do a great job. You always do. You have tremendous energy, and I I think a lot of the things that I enjoy most about Provo are things that you help make possible downtown. And for the record, I've been buying food at every single concert downtown.
Yeah, good.
And I'm in my 50s. So there are exceptions to those teenagers.
Don't worry. I'm relaying those messages as often as possible.
So I just like to say, I love the way I've seen downtown revitalize over the last few years. When we moved here in 2009, it was better than it was when we left in 2000. And since we've been here, the change has been dramatic. And I'm still sad that Unhinged is not downtown anymore because I used to buy lots of things there.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. It's fun.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah. And so that you know, as you consider this, the way that we're currently funded goes through the economic development budget. And then they're the ones that keep us accountable annually on our financial stuff. So that's where the request would come from ultimately.
All right, we'll go ahead and take a 10-minute break. See y'all back at 5 till. I guess we're going to take a 9-minute break.
Recording stopped.
The what? Oh, yeah. My wife designed all that. Yeah. She did that 30 years ago, and now we're like, oh, this is yeah, and that's part of the city council staff about it. Yeah, I'm glad. It's a shame we don't have this one in person. I think having city council in person. I didn't want to say that today, but there will be a point where it makes it hard for presenters to have someone that's in the room want to maybe show things. There are 42 blocks in the downtown. So there's different types. Some of the green ones are power. The other ones are simple processes. So yeah, there's like 30-ish green ones and like 15. Yeah, so we'll do a similar program like the mural program where we'll trickle them out. It's part of what creates excitement is that we're always gradually doing something that people can expect. And it's not like a huge dump all this cash and everyone forgets about it. But if we're just doing one a month, they're not that expensive. If we're doing one a month and we have 42, that'll keep us just excited. So that's the plan. And we would love to expand beyond the downtown at some point. Our murals have actually slowed down. There are plenty of walls, but having a property owner who operates mock-ups and stuff, it's just been harder and harder. We could for sure. It's totally, and I mean that's the wall that got meant. We could. It's not technically downtown, so we haven't focused outside yet. We have. So, and that's actually when we started the program. I was helping connect the dots regularly, and that's when we were like, I helped connect the dots to get that done, and then you know, these dots for other times. Why don't we make this program out of this to where we're doing it on a regular basis? So, yeah, we try to do more in the downtown where the property owners want them, but they're super weird, like housing bought one of those old districts out, and we renovated it. It's like a special place for programs. It is the one that's just they have a huge white wall and they want a mural. The problem is there's that car place right next to it. So they have all the cars against the white wall. Like, how am I gonna paint it? No one can like take pictures by it, and it's just, we're gonna have to have scaffolding over the cars. So that's just an example of, there's several of those walls where people like, hey, this, I'm like, so we have a few of those we're working on. Right now, actually, I think we're gonna spend like 6 months on the Provo Town Square parking structure. Because there's a lot of walls, but I would love to still side parking structures. Also to sort of, yeah, well, and also to raise awareness of other parking structures. So many people are like, "Where's the parking?" They don't know where how to use them. So, yeah, there's one exterior wall on the east side of the parking structure that faces that grassy courtyard. But then why don't we just do like 4 little ones around those big pillars? I think we're gonna spend a chunk of time on that. Because part of the budget also is trying to we in the office, we just took out so we have an office downtown that's like a desk because we can't afford much more. We actually have this office that storage. So we're gonna use that. And that is in the Provo Town. So we've been working a lot on that problem. Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We're excited to see all the changes. Plus, it's a matter of like keeping my wife happy. We go back to New York, and I was like, well, why don't you tell me and I'll make it happen, you know? So she like makes this. That's why we're spending so much here right now. Such a high priority. Exactly. Or just keep my wife in Covey. Yeah. I mean, maybe we can marry her.
Oh, I sent you an email.
Great. Okay, thank you. Well, the beard, it's shorter than it was. Last time it was a little longer. I don't know. Have you been growing it off and on? Well, for years, you were all clean shaven. I never saw you or anything. Exciting. So are you presenting next? Yeah, we haven't done it in a while. I realize. Yeah. I didn't even know that it was down here. Oh, it's weird. Yeah.
No, you're far from that. You're just fine in my.
Yeah, Liz is printing them right now.
Not that everybody could just stare off and just take the risk. Very safe. to follow Quinn, you know?
Yeah, because his technological things with words on them was really cool.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for this opportunity to discuss our department and the upcoming budget for this year. So I'll be joined today also by Doug Robbins, because I know the limits of my entertainment values. And we're also joined by many of the talented staff here. So on the next slide, it kind of gives you a blueprint for our budget presentation. And this has been an initiative in Provo about telling Provo's story and developing a powerful story. And in that, you have to work from facts, not fiction, showing your alignment with the organization, talk about things that you have done, what is unique about your organization, the short horizon goals, which will be where we talk about what will be coming for the next budget, and then providing an operational vision for every single operation you have. And then really looking about who assesses our success as part of this. So as first part, we're going to show our alignment with a musical gold medal theme. This covering the actions that we have taken to support the general plan and goals. And this, quite frankly, was important for the most recent gold medal award that our department received, which is the highest honor for a Parks and Recreation department can receive in the United States. So to go through all this information, and speak through that, it'd be difficult. So we choose to do this through a musical montage here.
Let's go. I can hardly wait for it. Pushing for a long time. Dreaming all my life for it. Alright. Walking on a thin line. Let's go. I still believe I'll get through the long night. I'm digging deep, climbing to a new height. What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? The future is golden, the future is gold. The future is golden, the future is gold. The future is gold, the future is golden. Step into the moment. Yeah, I'm facing that mystery. It's my time to own it. Can I make history? Yeah. What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? Alright. What you gonna do when they shine a light down on you? The future is golden. The future is gold. The future is golden. The future is gold. The future is gold. Making magic every day that I got, alright. Automatic all the way to the top, alright. The future is golden. The future is gold. The future is gold. The future is golden.
Just one question,
Yes,
Scott. Was
Bill.
that Doug on the vocals?
It is Doug. Yes. Another one of his hidden talents. Yes.
No.
Our media services is awesome for creating that whole musical production. Yeah. That's our crew singing that. Yeah. So Doug and I are going to take you through the story, what's on the horizon, and what's the operational vision for the future of each one of the operations we're responsible for. We're joined today by Tucker Laugy, manager of the rec center, but we are operating the most successful rec center in the nation in Provo, Utah. And this is done through a study by Barker Rinker Seacat, an architectural firm. And what they look at as part of that measurement is citizen use. We have over 2 million visitors that attend our facility every single year. 25,000 people hold a membership to our rec center. So if you look at the population of Provo, that's an inclusion rate of somewhere between 1.4 and 1.5. No other city sees those numbers. Revenues cover operation costs, future needs of the facility, and then after that contribute to the general fund from this same success. The triple play membership, which includes use at the rec center, also the ice arena and at the golf course, is one of the best values for community recreation that citizens will ever see in any community. What we're seeing in this year's budget and what's on the horizon, since this is a self-sufficient budget, we really look at solving our own problems and budget issues within this program, but so there is no general fund ask from the rec center. So we are looking at our part-time and seasonal market in our labor shortage, and these are some of the tougher ones to fill. Parks and Recreation right now has 55 full-time and 750 part-time and seasonal at our peak, which is a big staff and a big hiring process. So any influence in the hiring market has a major impact on us. Cost of operations and inflation, chemicals like chlorine, all those things are affected by the supply chain and our inflation. And so that's something that we are addressing in our budget by looking at efficiencies in other areas and also looking at revenue production. And we really are moving to a focus on the details, delivering a clean, well-managed facility every single day for everyone to enjoy now that we have been in the rec center for celebrating our 8th year anniversary this year. So 8 years goes fast. But I love the fact when people show up and it says it looked like you just built it this year. And that is something that's really important to us. Operational vision for the future. And now that theoretically COVID and our pandemic is behind us, we look to reinvent our senior programming post-COVID and welcome our seniors back in big numbers, looking at new programs, new social, new healthy lifestyle, new nutrition programs to be able to reinvent ourselves. Rarely do you get a chance to reinvent yourself as an organization, but because of the break that this population had to take from some programs, this gives us a chance to do that. So this is important that we come back and improve those areas. And we continue to add incremental enhancements like the wave ball outdoors, like the Ninja Cross system that is in our competitive pool and our replica jazz courts in a partnership with the Jazz that we were able to do. But I think what we have really looked at the rec center is run, walk, crawl, whatever you do, let's keep moving forward. And that's important to us. There's an exciting times coming for the Peaks Ice Arena. Foster Watabe is the manager, and he's joined us here today. So in Utah, this is the most successful Olympic venue that exists from the 2002 Olympics. It's completely self-sustaining, has excellent usage numbers. We've had people come as far away from South Korea to come see this facility and see how it operates. Fraser Bullock is the one that has really made that statement about being the most successful, the best transition from Olympic use to day-to-day use. So it's something to be really excited about. And this ice arena sits here as Utah County's only opportunity to be a future Olympic venue. And how many communities can say that they have an Olympic venue in their community? But as part of this story, the ice arena is really rising from the political ashes. We used to manage this. I remember I gave a presentation at Utah Recreation and Parks talking about how two governments can work together to run a facility, a county and city government. And right after that is when I found out that the county no longer wanted to operate with us. And we almost went to auction, almost lost an Olympic venue, which would have been I think in the ultimate failures. And I give tons of credit to the mayor's office and the council and everybody for stepping us to do this. And you could see how Parks and Recreation has taken this trust and this challenge to heart by doing the things we are doing. We have received state funding for improvements to the facility that will enhance day-to-day and our Olympic future. It does require a local match at some time down the point, so we will be contacting the council about that and having a discussion on that as we start getting the specifics on that funding from the state. And we're looking at every day creating the Olympic spirit so people can feel what it's like to be part of the Olympics and be and actually skating on Olympic ice. What we look at now is the Olympics starts to transition to representing Provo at an international level. And we'll even have the International Olympic Committee, the IOC, visiting in April to come see our facility. And so we want to put our best foot forward. The Timpanogos Golf Club, and Brett Watson is the golf pro manager for this facility. And it is really moving. And I think it's on the next slide. Thank you. So it was moving open space to a development that really transitioned us into a rare win-win scenario created by administration and council, which we all turned it together into a reinvention of an entire facility, including a lighted driving range, a lighted par 3, a family course, and a real social experience. So how does this impact? How does making reinvestment in a longstanding facility help? Well, we have taken a golf course that used to have $900,000 in revenue and was subsidized for about 300,000 of that to this year, we'll be putting in a budget for a $1.7 million golf course budget with no subsidy. So that's reinvestment does pay off and being relevant. It is not fiscally conservative to run outdated facilities. And I think we've all learned that together at the rec center and at the golf course. Yes, Councilmember McKay.
This is something I've been asked about a lot, but I'm not a golfer, so I'm not going to go hit the Timpanogos Golf Club. But people keep telling me, oh, we lose all this money on it. It's a horrible golf course. We hate it. It's hate, people don't like it. What is the reality of that? Because there was a remodel, correct? I'm wondering if I'm hearing people complain about an old problem that's not that anymore.
Yeah, it could be that. Even with this discussion, the East Bay Golf Course, its former name, was the most used golf course in Utah County. So if they are carrying old paradigms, if they're carrying paradigms from back when it was under private management and really went through some struggles, that is going to be something that we're just going to have to win by good reputation. We're even, coming out of a construction season. The difference between a golf course project and the City Hall project is when we're ready to open City Hall, we open the doors and everything's done, where a golf course is growing in. So I think we will always have to work together to maybe take some of the old stigma and change. And I think that was, and I think you hit on a key point, that was a big reason why we did the rebranding, is this celebrates history and the success of golf in Provo with a new rebranding idea. But our usage numbers are absolutely crazy. So if those people don't want to come, I think we're okay.
So it is self-sufficient now, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there is no tax subsidy.
Well, that's a huge part because that's one of the big complaints, right? Oh, why are we paying for this? I'm not a golfer. So these people, some of them aren't even golfers, right? That are complaining. So this is wonderful to be able to say, hey, no, it's self-sufficient.
Yeah, the golfers that play at the course pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So another great aspect of this course is its environmental sustainability. A lot of times golf courses also take, and this one through not knowing our systems, say, boy, that's a lot of green grass. That's a lot of potable water that's being wasted on the golf course. Well, the golf course is watered by secondary water, gray water from the water treatment plant. So no potable water is utilized on the course. In fact, it serves as another great filter before that water goes to the lake and adds to that environment also. But something else that we can do, and it's on the horizon, is looking at the last part of being one of the most sustainable environmental golf courses in the region would be to move from gas golf carts to electric carts. And what that would require is a charging station building area for the storage on that. So we will be coming and working with administration about talking about an internal loan that will be funded from golf course revenues to be able to make that last step and really have a golf course that we can be proud of. We're also looking at approximately 100 plus acres south of there that is in a conservation easement, wildlife preserve, and adding that to the golf course management also about an area for bird watching and hiking and open space usage that we can add to this overall area. So we really get the benefit of open space in this part of our community. And the vision for the future with the golf course, a lot of those things are part of it, this way of looking at the golf course and it as an outdoor recreation space. But we are truly trying to change the way municipal golf is operated. So that might make people nervous. That might make people confused, but we feel like this is the future of the industry. We need to connect this golf course to the entire city, not just to golfers. Covey Center for the Arts. Paul Dearden is our general manager. I ask you all to think of Paul. Paul is in the hospital right now fighting some medical issues, so I think his thoughts and support would be felt by us all. The Covey Center is unique in its story in that it was a community fundraising project. And it's a reason it's called the Covey Center is because Stephen and Sandra Covey stepped up with a substantial donation to build this facility and convert what used to be the old public library into the Center for the Arts. We did a benchmarking study of the Western United States and looking at the attendance, the number of shows, the level of use in the percentage of use in the main hall. And the Covey sits there as one of the best of the best. We have over 100,000 visitors coming to downtown every single year, adding to the vibrancy that the Covey Center brings to the downtown that we just heard about from Quinn. So on this horizon for this budget year, we really do have an opportunity to show support for the arts in that with the 90% main hall booking level, our staff, especially our technical staff, are being pushed to the brink. You know, a lot of times people load in early morning and then have their show at 7:30 and it's the same tech staff all day long. And we are running our full-time staff at their maximum, plus maxing out comp time. And we are asking really extended work weeks. So with the schedule we have, we will be putting forth a request to the administration and hopefully to the council of being able to add to that workforce to be able to cover this high schedule. The Covey actually operates at one less full time than when we opened right now. We reduced one marketing position, but it seems to be in the technical area where we're asking a lot and need to be fair to our employees. The facility will be going through an internal and external refurbishment now that we'll be past the next door city hall construction. I'm sure you can imagine that people walking in over this past 2 years, bringing in dirt, carpet, all that this place needs a refurbishment and needs that to solidify its place on the block. We really want to work at solidifying ourselves as the Center for Performance and Visual Arts in the region and really enhance our fundraising for community production so we can bring in those shows where everybody asks, well, how did they get them at the Covey Center? And we've got a long list of performers that we brought in. In fact, this Friday, we are all invited to join us for the Australian Bee Gees, which I saw them in Vegas and they're a really good act. Some of you may not be old enough to remember the Bee Gees and the disco era, but it was a good time if you weren't there. So tickets are still available. So looking at these revenue generating facilities, this next slide really summarizes what that means to the city of having well-run facilities and a well-run department. This shows where we started at the old rec center. When we were operating the Eldridge Senior Center and the old rec center and the teen center, those were approaching $1 million in subsidy. We eliminated that subsidy completely and even contributed in the early years $500,000 to the general fund, noting a big difference in the impact to the general fund with no subsidy required anymore for that facility. The ice arena started at $800,000, now it's zero. The Covey Center started at $750,000. Show me one art center that has reduced its subsidy besides the Covey Center. That's a rare thing. And so there is a subsidy there, but there's a big difference there. What used to be starting out as the East Bay Golf Course is now Timpanogos Golf Club, which has zero subsidy. So that means as you balance the budget, and as admin works with the budget, there's $3.2 million plus that is now in the general fund budget to be used perpetually from now on. If we operated like every other Parks and Recreation department, that would be $3.2 million that you may not have to balance the budget this year if we were operating at what you would expect at normal subsidies from a Parks and Recreation department. Special events through our master plan were noted as one of the most popular things that Parks and Recreation do and their citizens enjoy. We have really been known to set best practices, and during the pandemic, we found ways to keep people connected in our community, interacting and run large scales events, and communities from all over the nation were calling and asking about what our philosophies and what our strategies were. And this is not just Parks and Recreation special event. This is everybody's special event process. We're involved in airport openings. We're involved in street openings. We opened the Lakeview Parkway. We were involved in Women's Day and also the Freedom Festival and many others. So this is an asset and a talent that is utilized by the whole city. We do, when we're looking what's on the horizon, there is no supplementals being asked for, so we're bringing in status quo, but we want to move back to our larger impact events to where we're able to see what we're seeing in the picture in the upper right and seeing our community come out together. I think that was at a movie night in Rock Canyon Park and see those big events. And we love people to walk away and say, that's not your typical city event. The government ran this event. We love when people ask that question because we want to make sure that we exceed those expectations. Increased investment in events increases their quality. So we are looking for partnerships, whether through sponsorships, internal, external, for a grander scale of events. And I think we all just need to understand the importance of bringing our community together more often. So I'm going to turn it over to Doug Robbins, Assistant Director, for more of the storytelling about Parks and Recreation, and then I'll be back to finish up. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Parks and Recreation has unique opportunities to integrate best practices in both our youth and adult sports programming. These start out with our Field of Dreams concept at the Recreation Center, where we have miniature fields and invite our youth in our community and their parents to come out and get their first experience out on a sports field playing soccer, baseball, and football, and really initiate those lifelong habits of fitness and wellness. Transitioning into the show, our new program at Fort Utah Park, where we've taken our fourplex, our youth baseball complex, and introducing major league theming into that experience. So the youth that experience youth baseball will get a little bit of more of a major league type experience. We even have walk-up music for each kid that they get to select. And so that kind of individualizes the experience for each one of those players. And then moving on to the rec center improvements with the jazz courts, moving on with the junior jazz and the other participants that get to participate and play on those jazz themed and sanctioned facilities is really quite an experience that is unique to Provo. We are seeing a general trend in reduced participation in coaching and officiating. That's becoming a little bit of a challenge. So we're trying to find other ways to encourage participation from parents and other people to coach and be involved in youth sports programming that doesn't necessarily just involve wage increases. We also have a lot of other opportunities to really make a focus in all of our youth programming to really set those lifelong habits early on, so that we can really help our community and individuals fight the pandemics of obesity and cardiovascular health that we seem to be suffering from as a community. As far as our vision, we have some big opportunities to enhance our youth and adult sports programming with a facility we'll talk about a little bit later. Next slide. All right, our parks operations community survey data indicates that participation and value of our parks is very strong in our community. Not only do people participate and visit their parks and use their trails frequently, they value them very, very highly and consider them to be in pretty good shape. In fact, it's a large contributor, we believe, to our value of life or quality of life here in the area. We do have some full-time labor needs as we continue to grow and add neighborhood parks to the system. We've got a supplemental request that we'll be submitting to council for consideration for 50% towards one full-time position. Made some arrangements and some adjustments within our budget to cover the other 50%. So we'd like to submit that. We also have challenges with petroleum-based products. Anything that's made out of PVC, all of our irrigation parts are affected by petroleum rate increases. And like to highlight our successful coordination with the fire department. For several years, we've been trying to staff our weed abatement program, where we go out on city property and knock down flammable weeds. We've been doing that for a little over 10 years. As the program came over from the fire department. But with the recent funding of the WUI program, we've been coordinating with the WUI coordinator to integrate both of these programs. They're able to hire directly out of the fire academy. So they've got some interested candidates. They're qualified, and we feel that we can trust those people in highly flammable areas instead of some of these kids that we're trying to bring on board. So we look, in the future, trying to integrate these programs and run them under one manager and synergize our efforts between the two departments. Again, the demand for trails and access to the backcountry continues to increase, and as well as our grounds and right-of-way landscaping with new roadway projects that we're going to need to remember to keep funding in the future. Next slide. Okay, our projects, we are grateful, of course, as always, to the foresight and wisdom of past municipal councils and leaders within the community for the park and trail system that we enjoy today. And now we have the opportunity to make improvements and upgrade some of these sites and facilities to today's standards. And some examples of that include the Provo River Trail and some of the improvements that the RAP initiative has brought forward. Widening that tunnel underneath the train trestles, the recent acquisition of the KOA property that the council approved a couple of years ago, we've been able to turn that right around and eliminate a very unsafe situation that the community had with the trail. Those are game changers for the community, and we're really proud of those. On the horizon, we see more of the same, more trail improvements of the crossings at Columbia Lane and State Street and beyond, so that the entire Provo River Trail is wide, comfortable, and usable and lit during the nighttime hours as well. Part of our vision also includes addressing our sports field issues with the Provo Regional Sports Park. That's our 100-acre facility that we've been able to acquire out on the west side, just north of the new airport. It will be the largest municipally run regional sports park in the state. Currently, we have well over 300 teams competing for just a few fields, 8 to 10 fields, and we just don't have the practice time, and they're wearing out our neighborhood parks and really causing some impact to those as it spills over into the neighborhoods. So this facility here will have 21 competition fields, the inclusion of some pickleball. So we'll be able to run pickleball tournaments as well, and local leagues here. It should take care of that local need for expanded sports field space, as well as bringing in an estimated $30 million of local spending to the community with outdoor regional tournaments that we're planning to host here in Provo. So it kind of hits some of the key priorities that have been identified by the city as being unique, forward-looking, welcoming, with long-term economic benefit to the community. We're excited about that opportunity. And finally, the cemetery, one of the earliest cemeteries in the state of Utah, established in 1853. The Provo City Cemetery has really been a legacy burial park here in Provo, and something we're very proud of. We like to think within the department we serve people from the cradle all the way to the end of life and help them in some of the most difficult times of their lives and the families' lives, to help them to make interment decisions. And we've now, with this expansion, have many more opportunities that we've had before. And so we're proud to be able to offer those services to the public at that point in people's lives as well. Some vision for the future. We do have a supplemental request to enhance the area surrounding the Veterans Monument for the annual hosting site for the Memorial Day service. There's some improvements we'd like to make there and make that a little bit more of a comfortable site for that annual event that the city celebrates those that have gone on before. And continuing to maintain that site as a reverent and respectful site is really our goal. And we've recently heard from one of our state representatives that our web-based internet database is one of the most useful and user-friendly databases in the state. So we're proud about that as well. Thanks.
So the last part we talked about is, how do you evaluate an organization? Everybody can stand here and say they are the best. So the question needs to be answered and asked and answered. Who assesses your success? So this department is fully accredited, which makes us one of 190 accredited agencies in the United States out of 10,000 that exist. When we received our accreditation, we received a 98% score. Everybody always wants to know what we didn't get scored on, but we've corrected that, so we would get 100% now. It was a department-wide effort, and rare in a department our size do we have something that everybody can work on together. And this was one of those projects that we were able to share and with ourselves, and we shared it with the council at that time. And it's something we're really proud of. It's literally awarded at the best of the best ceremony. So you can see we utilize that terminology quite a bit. Becoming accredited, why aren't more of the 10,000 accredited? Because it's not for everybody. It's hard. You know, you document yourself, you have standards, you have operational standards that you have to work with. So it is something that changed our department forever. And it's something that is not for everyone. It shows an extra commitment to a higher level of operation. I remember when, and speaking back to the pandemic, when there was a lot of uncertainty in Parks and Recreation, this was a quote that we kind of had a board where we put inspirational messages on, just kind of keep us all going. And the quote was, it was less about how we handle this pandemic, but it is more about how our organization comes out of it. And we were a better department coming out of the pandemic than we were going in. So all this culminated just in this last fall in October, on the next slide, in our department receiving the gold medal award. So I never thought I would be part of a city and an organization that would be eligible to win a gold medal award. And this is literally the Oscars, and there's no slapping at this award. But it really does position you as saying you are the best in the nation. It comes from the American Academy for Parks and Recreation, and it's an award that recognizes all aspects of a department. They do not just go into one area if you're running a successful rec center or a golf course or you have great parks. It is looking at it from a holistic approach. So it is a department award. But even with all this, we realize that our department isn't perfect. And part of the reason we have gotten to this level is we're committed to continual improvement as we work through these processes. And we have always felt the support from the administration and council, and we will continue to rise up to reach some of these vision elements that we see. But I hope when you see the efficiency that this department runs at, when we do come and ask for a request, we have looked at numerous options. And Doug talked about looking at efficiencies in parks to come halfway to create this new full-time position. Covey Center for the Arts is also doing that same thing, coming halfway, looking at revenues and efficiencies, the way to be able to fund half of the full-time position that they're asking for. And all this is driven by a concept that runs through our entire department, is just we think Provo citizens deserve the best, and that's what Provo Parks and Recreation will deliver for its citizens. So at this point, if you have any questions for Doug or I, or really hard questions for the other staff in attendance, then we're willing to take those right now.
Mr. Chairman, if I might. I think as a council, we have to recognize there's a reason why it's been rated best in the nation. You guys work hard, you work smart, and it's just a pleasure to associate with you. There's no moss growing on the Parks and Rec department, is there? Some new projects and enhancing the old ones. We just, our hats off to you. You and Doug and the gang have just done such a superb job for several years.
Thanks, Councilmember Fillmore. And we have felt your support back in your time with the Parks and Recreation Board when, quite frankly, all this was happening. You know, we were going through all these processes, and we feel the support of the council also.
Any additional questions? Scott and team, great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I love how you always use multimedia. Okay. I'm so excited to have Amanda Erkenbrock, Customer Service Director, come up and present to us a presentation regarding the fiscal year 2023 budget for customer service, which she took over last year.
Yeah, I did. Thank you. It's tough to follow Scott. And I didn't know that music was an option. Otherwise, this would be a lot more fun. But so I'm just going to, before we dive into this, just briefly tell you, thank you for having us here. We're really excited to get to tell you a little bit more about what we do. I realize this is supposed to be focused on our budget, but our budget is really straightforward. So if that's all I spoke about, we'd be done really quick. So I hope it's okay if I take the opportunity to brag a little bit about what we do and answer any questions you might have at the end. So since we have a few new council members, if you're not familiar with what we do, we are open Monday through Friday. So even though the rest of the city or most of the city is closed on Friday, we are still here to help citizens with anything that they might need. Some of the services we offer, utility billing, of course, is probably the biggest. That's probably about 75% of our calls that we get. We accept applications for licensing, special events, airport badging. We do passports. In fact, I believe we're one of the only passport acceptance facilities that's not by appointment only. You can come in anytime and apply for a passport, renew your passport. So that's really neat to be able to offer that service. We do pavilion reservations, and then we help with other inquiries that you may not know who to call. You can call us and we'll help get you to the right person. Oh, and we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Pretty cool. So we will be having a big event in May to celebrate that. So watch social media for information on that. It's pretty cool. When we moved in here 10 years ago, we weren't quite sure how it would turn out, but I think it's turned out really well. We've overcome a lot and been able to do a lot with the space we were given. So pretty neat to be here 10 years later. We have two main areas that I want to talk about. One is billing, and that's Annalie is our billing manager. She is responsible for ensuring that all of your utility bills go out on time with the correct information, that the presentment displays correctly. She has 7 employees with 102 years combined experience. Pretty neat. These are our most skilled. Most of them started as CSRs and have advanced into this. Plenty of experience there. We have 18 different billing cycles. The purpose for that is so that we don't receive all of the payments back on the same day. We want to stagger those and space it out. We are looking into consolidating that a little bit. But with those 18 billing cycles, that does mean sometimes we're working on holidays and weekends, and Annalie is great. She puts a smile on and she gets it done. We have 2 different, I don't want to get too technical about this, but we have 2 different meter management systems. We have one for water and we have one for power. So she actually has to go in and pull in those reads before she can put those on a bill and send them out. So it's a really involved process and she does a great job with it. Some of the unique services that we offer are net metering, budget billing, renew choice, shared solar, group billing, landlord agreements, and time of use. Some of the project we've been working on lately are Neptune 360. That's our water meter management program. We've been working with Shane Jones and Public Works to get this up and going. It's really improved the quality of the reads that we're getting. They're real time. The data is more accurate. So we're happy to have that up and going. We also just launched shared solar and time of use. We're now working on a commercial shared solar. If you're not familiar with the shared solar project, let me know or talk to Travis. It's an amazing facility and we're happy to be a part of that. So, and then as I mentioned before, we are looking to condense our billing cycle so that we're not working on the weekends and holidays. If at the end of the billing process, if customers have issues, they're actually calling into the call center. Brittany is our call center manager. She has 17 employees and they have a really detailed training program. We want to make sure that by the time the agents go out on the counter, they answer that first phone call, that they are very prepared for that. Some of the things they get trained on are fingerprinting. We do airport badging, passports, and all the services I mentioned before. So that training program, we really utilize that time to make sure they feel confident when they're hitting the floor. And then if it's okay, I'm going to turn the time over to Laramie. He's our business manager. He handles all of our stats and analytics. And he's just going to go through some of our stats with you and then just a brief overview of the budget. And if you have any questions at the end, we'll answer those.
Thanks, Amanda. Good afternoon. I am Laramie. I'm the business manager for our department. And I thought I would give you some highlights of just some metrics that we keep track of for all of the services that Amanda mentioned. I think it's kind of important to let you know kind of how much call volume we have and just the volume of the other services we do before I kind of give you the price tag of what that costs to do those. So if we start with the call center, we keep track of a lot of things in the call center, not just the call volume, like the calls answered, but how many calls come in, how long it takes to take care of that call, abandon rate, time to answer all those kind of things. But I think what's probably most important is just the sheer volume of those calls that come in. And that's the call center here. So across the top, if you look, in 2017 to 2022, we average anywhere from 91,000 calls a year to about 112,000 calls was kind of our peak in 2020. That's 9,000-ish calls a month, about 450, 500 calls a day. So we have quite a few calls that come in for a lot of reasons. Like Amanda said, about 75% of those calls are utility related, but the other 25% are everything from zoning, their parking, business licensing, sanitation. Those are kind of our biggest, I call them culprits, but they're kind of the biggest drivers of some of those calls. So if you look just underneath the amount of calls coming in, I've kind of given you an idea of the increase or decrease of the call volume from year to year. What's interesting to note is during the year of COVID, we had an increase of calls coming into the call centers when we had 111,000 calls in 2020. I think what's interesting about that is we had such a increase in calls for a number of reasons, not just COVID. We also went live with our new billing system with the Provo 360 project. We didn't do a lot of credit disconnects to help with COVID and because of the new system and a variety of things. People got used to doing business online because they weren't getting out to come in and do those kinds of things. So as people got used to doing that online, they were calling more. So we had that increase in 2020. People get used to doing that way. And now today, I think we have that decrease in call volume because people are used to doing business online. They're used to calling the IVR, pushing the number it takes them to make a payment. They make that payment and they don't really have to talk to an agent. You can see in the graph below that we're pretty consistent. We can predict pretty good month to month of what's going to happen that month. It really helps us with our staffing and the other services that we can kind of gear up for when we need to do that. You can see in 2020, we were all over the place. And that's when we went live with the new billing system, and that's when COVID hit and those other things. So kind of gives you an idea of the amount of calls that we have coming into the call center. So about 112,000 calls a year. That's a lot of calls on behalf of the city. The next one is passport services. There's another one. Well, pretty much every service that we perform was heavily impacted by COVID. You can see from year to year, we kind of started passport services in 2019. So that first highlighted line there, if we start kind of where we was in 2019 to where we are today, even though we've had a little bit of a roller coaster of when those services were offered and those numbers of the total amount for that year, we still have an increase of service and revenue of 42% from when we started just 4 years ago. So I think that's a pretty good indication of the success of the passport program. If you look at the graph, this last year is the light blue line, and last year was the kind of the dark blue purplish line. You can see that we're kind of bouncing back and making some progress in resuming services like we were before. Same thing with passport photos. It's almost identical, same roller coaster that we've had due to COVID. You can see with the light purple line, that's where we are today. The dark purple is where we've kind of been over the last year. So we've bounced back. And again, even though it's been an up and down roller coaster of the amount of services that we've been able to do with passport photos, we still have had an increase of 100% just from fiscal year 2019 to where we are today. So one thing that's you might want to note on there, the total amount for the year, just underneath, I gave you an apples to apples comparison. So rather than leave you hanging where we ended at the last fiscal year, I gave you where we are from July to February of this year. And I've done that for the last few years so you can have current information as to actually what's been happening in the last 6 months rather than just at the end of the fiscal year. So kind of gives you a little indication there of so far this fiscal year, we're at 8,000, where this time last year, we was at $2,000. So we've been doing quite a service with passport photos. Fingerprint services, same story. COVID's impacted us quite a bit there. You can see I highlighted on the graph the months that we actually just didn't offer them at all. Fingerprinting services are generally pretty consistent because they're not dependent on people traveling or the season or people getting passports and that kind of thing. So This one has had a decrease in services over the last year. I think it's just because people were all over the place with compared to what we used to do before. So, and there are other people who offer these same services, but we're right back almost to where we was to begin with. If you just compare it to where we was this time last year, we are still up 17%. So go back 4 years, it's a little bit of a decrease, but we're bouncing back. All of that brings us to where we are with the budget. So if you look at that first column, it's the adopted budget for the fiscal year we are in today. If you look down at the dark green line at the bottom, we're at $3.4 million. Our proposed budget for this year at the bottom, if you look, it's $3.3 million, which is a decrease of $132,000. There's a little caveat to that, and I'll get to that in just a second. But we've broken down our four main sections of our budget for customer service. The top is admin. I'll just kind of give you a couple highlights of what's changed in each one of these categories. Of course, I broke them out for personnel, O&M, chargeback, and that first one has a debt service for the ERP, and that's the Provo 360 project. That had I think it was a 5-year payback for that project, and we had $105,000 in the budget for that payback schedule. That was satisfied this last year, so that's why it shows zero. This is the caveat I talked about before. The chargeback section up there shows $135,000. This year we'll start a maintenance contract for that project, which will increase that chargeback line item of $100,000. So we just haven't got our chargeback numbers, our firm chargeback numbers back from finance yet, because that's still for them to get all figured out in the next couple of weeks. But we already know they've told us that that'll add $100,000 to that budget. So when you look at the bottom line, even though it shows that we're under $132,000, we're actually awash with the payback schedule that we had of 105. So we're really down about $32,000. The O&M budget off to the side, if you'll see it, we did decrease that budget of $265,000. And the main reason for that was the Provo 360 project is now live. All of the consulting fees, everything that was built into that project was in that line item, as well as a lot of printing costs. And we've just moved those printing costs out of admin and put them back down in the next category in utility billing, because all of our bill print services for the utility bills come out of utility billing. So we're trying to keep all of our printing costs out of the same section, so we're not all over the place with where that money's coming from. So we added that money down in the next section. So in utility billing, personnel, relatively the same. It did come down a little bit. I'll explain that down at the bottom here in a second. Our O&M did go up considerably at $287,000. And that was because of some of those costs. We moved the printing costs from the admin budget to utility billing, and we added in the costs for the city newsletter and things like that. So that was the main addition to utility billing. I know it looks like a lot of money there, but again, the bottom line is still relatively the same. It's just moving those funds in a different category. Information technology. This one, the largest part of the IT budget for customer service is a lot of our contract maintenance. So most of the software and the machines and licensing and stuff that we have for our department mainly comes out of the IT budget. So we had a couple maintenance contracts that we just don't need anymore, as well as we had some reduction in training and some other things that we reduced that budget by $22,000. Not a ton there, but every little bit helps. And then the call center, that's stayed relatively the same. We didn't really change a whole lot there. So like I pointed out at the very beginning, we do have a decrease of about $32,000 because that $100,000 up above is going to be washed out with that maintenance contract addition. So just kind of one thing to note, the reason why we was able to still stay under budget, I guess, if you will, in comparison to the fiscal year we're currently in, is we had a reduction in staff mainly in utility billing. And that's about that $70,000 that you see there. So I think at the end of the day, we're doing pretty good as far as still maintaining the service levels that we had before, with just a decrease slightly in our budget from last fiscal year. So any questions on the budget? Sure.
So If I recall correctly, when IS came and spoke to us, they said that they needed to have another person because some of their guys were covering call center duties. Am I remembering that correctly?
So currently today, for the last, I don't know how many years, we've had a IT person that's dedicated to just the call center. It's been Matt Dunlap for the last few years. This last year, just in the transition of getting our new billing system back online, getting that stable, the transition from our previous director to Amanda and getting the Provo 360 project behind us, they wanted to add in that extra staff member to kind of help stabilize that, make sure that we didn't have anything fall through the cracks or take longer than it should. So they gave us an additional staff member that was, from what I understand, is a temporary thing. His name's Spencer. And so Spencer will be taking on the primary role of our main IT support for customer service going forward, and phasing out Matt as we go forward. So currently we've had one for the longest time. We've had two this year, and I think we're going back to one shortly.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay. Thanks to your group. Always taking my weird calls where I ask weird questions. Yeah. I call a lot.
We get more than you can imagine every single day. There's no such thing as a weird call in our department. So
yeah, you guys do a great job. Thank you. All right. Our next item is a resolution adopting the Mountainland Pre-Disaster Hazard Mitigation Plan. Chris Blisinger, Emergency Management Coordinator. This might be the first time I've heard from Chris. I don't know, but I'm excited.
You saw me with the mask.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
That's when you heard from me. Thanks for having me here. This is the pre-disaster hazard mitigation plan that, in cooperation with Mountainland Association of Governments, they get funding for this revision. It's quite lengthy. It's a regional plan, but covers Summit and Utah counties, and Provo has a portion of that plan. It was last updated and adopted by the council in 2017. So here we are with the most recent. I'm here today with Jared Penrod and Melissa McNally. In case there's questions, they were also contributors to this revision. This is not strictly an emergency management function. This talks about our threats, our vulnerabilities, and strategies for mitigating damages. One of the things this does is if we have a large disaster here, FEMA will come in here and say, we'll help you, but first let me see if you had a plan which says you understood what your hazards and vulnerabilities were, and you had stated some strategies to mitigate those before we hand you a bunch of money. This is something that's required. It's also helpful for us to evaluate our hazards and our vulnerabilities and what we're doing to mitigate them. We've made some great strides this year, some great projects. Doug Robbins was up here talking about the WUI program. Chief Miguel has talked a lot about that WUI program for our wildfire threat, and some great work that's being done there. So give me just a second, I forgot my paper. The first portion of that plan lists a lot of its historical things that have happened in Utah County, and also some of those natural threats and vulnerabilities, from earthquake, flooding, dam failure, wildfire, even down to West Nile virus, Rocky Mountain spotted fever, drought, avalanche, things like that. So they've kind of evaluated all of those, and they've assigned some financial impact that could be. And if the Provo portion is page 196, 197, 198, 199. What that shows is dollars in the thousands. So for instance, if we had a dam failure, that's going to be up in the billions of dollars of damage to Provo. Earthquake, similarly, many dollars. Those are difficult challenges. Those are in the low consequence or low probability, high consequence event. But there's a hazards that's done, and that's kind of an assessment based on our community that's done at the higher level, at the federal level, to tell us what those damages would cost our city. And you see that building values in the thousands. So that's not 5 million, that's a lot more, 5 million thousands. So very expensive, and those risks and vulnerabilities. We're very fortunate here that we don't have those, but that earthquake could happen at any second, as we have seen that in the last couple of years. That just comes when it wants to. So if there's any questions about what that is, about anything about the plan, I believe we had a resolution. Did that come through? Okay. And ask that you would adopt this. It's good for 5 years, and it's important for us to do that revision just to evaluate where we're at.
Go ahead, Councilor Fillmore.
I may have missed something in your presentation, but help me understand the prior chart where it talks about the miles, road miles, transmission miles. What are you telling us there? Is
that is
miles of track or road that would be affected?
Correct.
Taken out?
Yes, that would be in that flood zone that could be damaged. Yes,
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. So how do you feel about Deer Creek Dam right now?
Frankly, in talking to our dam managers up there, which is the Provo River Water Users Association, also working in combination with Central Utah Water Users Association, that dam is very stable. It was built to and built into a very robust dam. I guess it's been over a decade ago. What concerns me more than the dam failure is that maximum outflow. And that's something that we would have notification for. That's something that we could evacuate for. But if there's any damage upstream or flooding upstream, Deer Creek is not a flood control. That dam can overtop. And if there's any damage to the dam, they might do that maximum release, which is something that is still going to impact us, not like the dam failure, but that's what concerns me more. I think is higher on the probability, but still in a very low probability.
But what is the remedy for a major dam overflow?
Wash everything out downstream.
Right. I mean, do we have some provisional diversion areas?
We do not. And
it just goes right to the floodplain.
It goes right to the floodplain. So Jordanelle Dam, which is upstream, it does have 50,000 acre feet of flood protection. That's built in. They don't fill it all the way full. Unless there's a flooding and they have to get approvals up the chain in the federal government to fill that 50,000 acre feet. That is the flood control that we have. We don't have flood controls or overtopping restrictions on Deer Creek Dam.
Okay.
Can we see the resolution again? Welcome, John.
You're going to hear this item tonight to pass the resolution.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions?
I guess since he's here, we could ask Chief Miguel to maybe comment on our fire hazard abatement situation.
Members of the City Council, welcome. Appreciate the opportunity to speak just for a second. I wanted to make just one comment about what you're seeing up here. When we look at the hazards that we have that threaten Provo, if something goes wrong, whether it be an earthquake or a flood or that, you need to know that there are hundreds of people from all over the region that are planning for these things, and that it is, as we mentioned, the reservoirs. There is quite a dance that goes on when we have the spring runoff. There's quite a dance that goes on as the water comes down and is held in Jordanelle, and then it's released to Deer Creek, and that is only allowed to rise to a certain level before they'll release it. And then when there's significant, when they anticipate, like we did 3 years ago, I think, when they were going to have some significant runoff, they ramped up the Provo River to basically its maximum flow. And we were flowing that at maximum flow. It takes a little bit of water into some yards down along the river, but it's designed to release that pressure so that we don't have more significant damage. I wanted to talk just for a second about Public Works. Public Works is really the main organization in the city that works with this water flow and works with keeping the riverbed clear. And because a lot of things can change just with one downed tree in the river, flows can change and it can cause backup. And so we work very closely with all of our partners in the watershed, and then Public Works is in constant contact with them as we anticipate what kind of a winter or what kind of a spring we are going to have. So there's, in every one of these categories, we have to put together this report and so that we can demonstrate to FEMA that we actually have thought about these things. But the reality is we have thought a lot about these things, and we have, we've talked about what we're going to do if there's a major earthquake. How are we going to organize the EOC? How are we going to get out and do what we call windshield surveys, where police officers and firefighters and Public Works people are driving around the city and they're basically assessing the damage that's been done. Lot of just a lot of effort and a tremendous amount of coordination with our governmental partners in this particular in all of these areas. Now, as far as the wildland risk, we are off and running. We have our coordinator, Jeannie Atherton, who is a firefighter paramedic, been here about 11 years. She is our new coordinator, has some wildland experience, and she's our new PIO, and those kind of go hand in hand. We are bringing, we're organizing resources, and one of the things that Jeannie's able to do is to bring resources that already exist. We have hand crews that are in the county that want to train, need to train in the spring. And so making arrangements for them to come and train here. They'll come in and they'll clear brush and they'll and do a lot of that work. There's a full public education campaign that we're going to roll out here in April. We actually are interviewing. We have quite a bit of interest in our fuel mitigation positions, our part-time positions, which is good for us and Parks, because Parks has had a difficult time finding people that just come in and run weed eaters. And so we've made it a little more interesting, and we have found a way to provide them some training and found them some experience, if you will, for their resume. And so we have people coming out of our fire academies that have a significant interest in working for us for the summer. So we are excited about where we are headed. And it's, as I said, it's a big area. We've got a lot of area to do, and this is a multi-year program. Actually, this is a cultural change that has to take place in Provo. This is one where every single person that lives in that interface recognizes the problem and is willing to do their part to help us. And then for some people, maybe even a little bit more than their part. But we are, like I say, we're off and running, pretty excited about where we're headed.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Councilor Whipple.
Yeah, so I'm interested in the hazard that is posed by the unreinforced brick masonry. So these pre-1990 buildings. I know that some of these buildings are private residences, others are schools and other things. But I noticed that the mitigation strategy for that is just to encourage the Fix the Bricks program. That's it. It's a high priority, but that's all we're doing.
We cannot, Fix the Bricks is a program that Salt Lake City started, and it's a unique program that has gained a lot of recognition from our federal partners. The state of Utah has looked at creating a statewide program for those mitigation for the Fix the Bricks program. That Fix the Bricks program includes stabilizing a chimney, attaching a roof to a wall in some of those cases of those older homes. And that's what it is. There's a combination with a little grant money, insurance money, and a homeowner expense to the homeowners. I've had some questions from the community about that and encourage them to contact the state to push that. And that's really where we can get the most bang for our buck. There's not another program eligible for that because of the money that it requires for our, what they call BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities. That's what changed from the Pre-Disaster Mitigation Grant Program. The kind of money that we would talk about just to do 24 homes is far more than the maximum request for that grant. Salt Lake City is in a unique position and many people have heard of that, and that's why I get the phone calls on it. But we want to get that. We would like the state to buy into that. And if they can get some kind of agreement at a higher level, I think that will really give us the ability to do those, work with the homeowners. It also requires a full-time person to do that, which is another full-time position for Provo City or for a grant manager. That's what, just following Salt Lake City's program, that's what they've done. So yes, encouraging people to contact the state and push for that adoption of a statewide Fix Their Bricks program, I think is our best action.
So it's too big for us to do ourselves. So we really need to push the state to expand.
Correct, because there are federal dollars that contribute to that as well as, the state and the.
Thank you.
You know, you're going to answer so many questions about different things, did you?
That's all right.
We got him here. Let's get him. All right. Any more questions? Okay. Go ahead.
If I could say one more thing, we've got some new folks here, new council members, and we thank you for being here. There is some available training, and we were starting to work with Cliff on that a little bit for elected officials, and would like to still do that. And so maybe it's when we get the new Cliff in and in place that we start working on scheduling some time. It's a couple-hour training, but I think it's something that it gives you an idea of what our response roles, responsibilities that there are, and what the city's doing. So we would look forward to that once we get the new Cliff.
Another question, if I might.
Yeah.
Is there something unique about the Provo area, perhaps the foothills in particular, that makes us more susceptible to liquefaction problems?
Yes. We have, what's unique about Provo is a big mountain and a big lake.
Mm-hmm.
That lake has been there for millions of years. It's a shallow lake. So the waterbed is, the water has creeped up the soils that contributes to that. Really all along the western side of the valleys here along the Wasatch Front are susceptible to that liquefaction. And it's amount of, once the ground starts shaking, it turns to quicksand and buildings sink. And that's very challenging of how we can mitigate something like that.
So what areas of Provo would be most susceptible? Along
West
the
of the west side of I-15,
Okay.
closer to the lake. Yeah.
Okay. What about mudslides? How susceptible are we to mudslides?
Well, we do have some
Particularly in
ground.
drought years.
Right. We have some ground movements currently. That's a slow moving. I would not call them mudslides. We see those debris flows, or what you call mudslides, really in burn scars. On a fire that has occurred, this ether fire down in Mapleton, the homes below that get evacuated several times a year because they're contacted by the National Weather Service saying it's coming and be careful. They're concerned with those flows on those burn scars. We don't have any serious burn scars here along our area, and that's not really a concern. It's not the spring runoff. It's those thunderstorms that really impact those burn scars that send the debris down and create those mud flows.
I asked because particularly in the Sherwood Hills area, I'm aware of some, I don't know what the technical term is, but where the soil's separated, where you've got all of a sudden a gap, a little crevice, may go down 8 or 10 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering if you're seeing more of that, or
I don't know that we're seeing more of that. I'm not a geologist, and I don't know if Public Works could speak to that. I don't want to throw you.
A little bit. So I'm Jared Penrod with Public Works. I do know in our engineering division, we have monitoring sites up on the east benches
where we actually monitor the ground movement. And so we do keep a pretty close look at that. As far as I'm aware, there hasn't been any major changes in the past few years. But that is a continually monitored thing that we look at every year and that we have consultants keeping an eye on.
So you don't see any trend or anything?
As far as I'm aware, no, there hasn't been any trend.
And I suppose that we'd be more susceptible to that if we had some heavy rain years.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. And like Chris had mentioned, the biggest issue with those mudslides are the burn scars and then the kind of the thunderstorms that happen in the summer. And we do account for those in developments with debris flow basins to where if a development occurs on the east end, then they need to look at a potential burn of the area above them and look at the area that would flow down into the development and then make a basin to accommodate what drainage we would expect from that. So we do take a pretty close look at things like that when new developments come in. And then Chris as well with things like this, looking at the hazard mitigation of these types of events.
Thanks a lot. It's helpful.
Along with that, do you look really carefully about permitting any development along the foothills where you cut off the toe so that, because sometimes you create a scarp and failure of the slope if you too aggressively cut into it?
Yeah, and I don't know if I'm the best person to talk to specifically to that point, but I know that that is the reason for the like the 30%, that we don't want to cut into any 30% slopes or create steep slopes is for that purpose. So I know there is a lot of time when new developments come in that specific thing is looked at. Yeah.
All right. Any additional off the wall cool questions to ask? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
That concludes the standard portion of our work meeting. Closed meeting has been requested. We lost Brian.
You got to step out. A closed session has been requested for Utah Code Section 52-4-205. It has to deal with personnel matters, which is an allowed use. So we'll be meeting up in the council chamber or council conference room in 10 minutes. Goodbye.
Okay. Is there a motion to close the meeting? Wait. Yeah.
I'll move.
I'll second that motion. Any discussion on the motion? So just so you all know, I was advised that we do have to start doing roll call per code. I didn't know that. So for votes that are like kind of official, I have to actually do a roll call. So Councilor Hoban will say vote yes. Councilor Handley.
Yes.
Councilor Ellsworth is not present. Councilor Fillmore.
Yes, sir.
Councilor McKay.
Yes.
Councilor Shipley.
Yes.
Councilor Whipple.
Yes.
It's a yes from all council members with Councilor Ellsworth absent or excused. So what I'll do is next time I'm going to start with Councilor Handley and go, so we don't go in the same order every time, but we also, it's helpful for staff if we do go in some sort of order. So we'll just move down to the next name each time we take a vote. Okay. Thank you all. We will now close this meeting.
Recording stopped.